Hello, good morning and welcome. I'm Gyles Brandreth and a very warm welcome to the Bridlington Spa. Yes, this is the Business Day 2021. We're here, we're live, we're real. But this is going to be a virtual day because you are wherever you are, but we are really here with an extraordinary 3 hours where we're going to be celebrating all that's best about this part of the world, which is already the best part of the world. And what a set we have got. I'm thrilled. I'm here on the stage, in the spa, and, well, we've got so many treats in store for you. This, I think, I like the look of the different chairs, but I notice a gold one. Could this be for me? Gold for me, gold for Gyles. What a good start to the day. Well, good morning, and thank you for being there. I'm wearing a suit because this is a special and important day, but you can be wearing your leisure wear, whatever you want to be sporting this morning. Please keep your pajamas on if you're watching in bed, because this is a civilized occasion. And I'm not going to be alone here, because during the course of the next 3 hours, we're going to be meeting some remarkable people. Among others, I'm going to be meeting one of the heroes of my lifetime. Yes, James Mason is here. He's going to be here because today what are we doing? We're showcasing Hull, East Yorkshire, as well as the wider Yorkshire region. And every hour we're going to have a trio of speakers, and we're going to be hearing at the end of the day from a keynote speaker, East Yorkshireman and horsemaster Mark Atkinson, who's been providing horses and riders for TV, film, photo shoots and live events for more than 25 years. And if we get a chance, during the course of the morning, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, who died earlier this year, but whose 100th birthday would have fallen yesterday. And he actually admired this part of the world, and I want to share a few stories with you. That's later on. But before all of that, I'm joined by two very special people. Would you please welcome to the stage, and feel free to applaud wherever you are, Stephen Parnaby, Event Director for the Business Day, and Thomas Martin, Director at For Entrepreneurs Only. Here they come. Welcome, gentlemen. Take a seat. You notice how they're removing their masks. We are taking all this seriously. They're wearing their masks, and they're wearing jackets. I'm wearing a tie. Stephen obviously thinks it's Dress Down Friday, and he's come wearing a rather amusing sort of French tablecloth, you know, the kind of checked tablecloth they wear as a sort of shirt. You're looking very sporty. Now look, Stephen, tell us why we're here.
Well, morning, Gyles. Thank you for that. Well, understandably, we had to cancel last year, and we didn't really want to do the same again this year. So we got together with our sponsors, our partners, our supporters, and we decided, well, look, if we're going to do something, we'll do it virtually, but on one condition. If we're doing it right, and we're going to make it really special, like the Business Day always is. So it's going to be a really special day, hence the reason why you're here to host this, Gyles, because we know you'll make it special. So no pressure on you now. You had to go at my shirt. I can return that one.
Quite
so,
right.
All the best, and no, seriously, we are so pleased that you're here and so pleased that you're hosting this event for us.
Well, I do want to salute you. If you don't know, Stephen, he is remarkable, recognised by the Queen. He's, I think, are you an officer of the Order of the British Empire?
I am indeed, yes.
That's a nice thing to have. When you went to get to your gong, who was it who did the honours that day?
It was Prince Charles.
Very good. Did he have a few words for you?
Yes. What exactly do you do?
And did you know? Did you have an answer to give him?
At that point, you just dry up.
Anyway, I know this part of the world well because my great-grandparents came here in the 1890s, when in Victorian times this Bridlington was a major resort, wasn't it?
It was.
In those days. And my great-grandfather was the keeper of the poorhouse in Bradford. And he thought he was quite a significant figure, and he felt he could look after his family properly, so he brought them here. And the big excitement for him when he was here is he became friends with a man called Wallace Hartley. Does that name ring a bell to you?
It does.
You does.
I know he is, yeah.
You know he is. He was the band leader, the orchestra leader, here at the Spa, I think, in the early years of the 20th century, around 1902. And my great-grandfather became friendly with him, and the reason I know about him is that he was the band leader on the Titanic. And when the Titanic went down, he was still conducting the band.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's remembered here in...
Blue plaque on as you come into the spa.
Very good. Well done. You're not alone. We've also got with you Thomas Martin, Director at For Entrepreneurs Only. What's that?
Very good morning, Gyles. Good morning to the audience. We are a members' organisation with 200 members, representing 23,000 workers, and we partner with 6 excellent key partners to get their expertise. And you'll be wondering, what are we doing here? Why would we want a partnership with Steve Parnaby for the Business Day? Well, actually, it's a no-brainer, because we are all entrepreneurs, and Steve's day was curated to energise, to inform, and to educate what's going on in the region, some fantastic opportunities. And what we do, Gyles, is For Entrepreneurs Only, it is all about creating jobs and creating growth, and helping to define a very different future for our region. So it's absolutely a perfect fit. And what we actually do is we help businesses start, we help them adapt, and we help them grow. There's 3 key work streams. And then we prepare the next generation of entrepreneurs by going out to primary schools, right the way through secondary schools and colleges, so to give them a few ideas as how they could start their own business. So we really are taking a broad message right across the region.
Great.
Very proud of it. It's a very easy fit, a no-brainer for the FEO board to get involved. And in our 10th anniversary year to be supporting this event, not a bad year for us either. We won a community award with the Yorkshire Post Business and Excellence Awards. And only recently, a few weeks ago, we were awarded a Queen's Award for voluntary service. So that's in recognition for what we do. So we're not bad at what we do.
Congratulations, really great
Thank you.
achievements.
I'll take that back to the board.
We're hoping today to have some fun as well as learning things along the way. And so stick around, please, gentlemen. I want to learn something straight away because Steve mentioned to me earlier that did I know, because I was talking about the ridings, why they were called the ridings. You obviously know, Thomas, why they're called the ridings.
Of course not.
You know why there are only 3 of them?
No.
You don't know that?
I don't know that.
Only 3 ridings, because riding is an old way of describing threading. Threading is how the word began. It means a third. A riding is a third. That's why there are only 3 ridings. And then I was mentioning this to Steve earlier, and he said, well, did you know that the East Riding is the only riding mentioned in the Bible? And I said, I don't believe it, and you gave me the text.
I did, and people might have heard this before, but it's absolutely true. We are mentioned in the Bible. And if you think about it from your school days or whenever, it came to pass that 3 wise men came from the East Riding on camels.
That's the level of the humour. But don't worry, we've got substantial stuff as well. You will be earning your CPD points today, even if you are watching in leisure wear. Let's begin with a film about the Humber ports, because the Humber ports are one of 10 areas now across the UK to have successfully bid for a free port. This is something that's going to create new jobs, boost regional and wider economies, and we hope further enhance the Humber sub-region. We're going to find out more now from the port director. It's Simon Bird.
The government had announced last year that it was intention to establish free ports across the UK. The Chancellor announced there'll be at least 8 in England, establishing 8 free ports by hopefully by the end of the year. So those free ports across England include here on the Humber, as well as other locations around the UK. And as part of the free port, the government is introducing various incentives to attract investment, to create jobs, create manufacturing in those free port zones. These will be real incentives for hopefully offshore investors looking to invest in the UK that will see the free port as the priority and right location for them. The original architect, I guess, of free ports was Rishi Sunak before he became the Chancellor, and we have on the Humber in Martin Vickers, MP for Cleethorpes, who chaired the all-party parliamentary group on free ports. So there's been a great deal of focus on free ports on the Humber and an opportunity to input through Martin Vickers to other MPs as the government formed its policy in what it wanted to see by establishing free ports. We had to submit a bid. The government invited proposals from a variety of candidates. The Humber bid is representing both north and south banks of the Humber, as the geographical zone includes Gaul to Grimsby and Hull and Immingham. We understand from the government that the Humber bid scored highly in every category. In fact, was the highest scoring of the bids it received, because it's addressing all the points that the government wants to see established by free ports. But because of the geography of the Humber, because of the size of the Humber in terms of the region, then the scale of the Humber and the multiplier effect that it will bring to free ports is much more significant than some of the other bids. The Humber has has so much going for it in terms of scale, in terms of being the busiest estuary in the UK. The offshore wind sector is based here on the Humber. Here in Hull, Siemens Gamesa are manufacturing blades. In Grimsby, we've got the largest offshore support centre of offshore wind in the world in Grimsby. And in Goole, where Siemens Mobility has a rail manufacturing facility, Goole, which is part of that tax zone, is seen as a location whereby the supply chain in rail, which feeds the Siemens factory, can be established. But also we've got carbon capture coming up, and the government has focused on a number of key locations around the UK. The Humber, because of its historical links, is the UK's largest emitter of carbon. The reduction in carbon is underpinned by legislation. It's got to happen. And given the Humber is the largest emitter of carbon, we have the focus of the government on the Humber. Other technologies, there'll be other companies that will be supplying that carbon capture industry, which will be attracted to the Freeport. Freeport is going to act as a catalyst to attract more investment around that sector. Really exciting, and all of those are manufacturing jobs, and all of those are very long-term schemes, so providing investment, employment opportunity for decades to come. I've worked here on Humberside nearly 6 years. I've seen industries sadly decline. We've looked at the energy sector. This is often called the energy estuary, where we've handled in the past millions and millions of tonnes of coal going to coal-fired power stations. Well, coal is now seen as yesterday's fuel, but that was also jobs. People had jobs in that supply chain, and there are other industries that are more traditional that have seen decline. The opportunities in the local area are fantastic. 7,000 new jobs in a relatively short time frame. I think that's underestimated. I think given the opportunities around carbon capture, offshore wind, rail, and the other industries will be attracted by that. I think that's I think the job growth prospects are really quite huge. What the Freeport and this region in particular has great potential around the new industries, around offshore wind, around manufacturing in Gould, around carbon capture, and all that brings to the table. The Freeport will be a catalyst to create that activity in the near term, and that economic activity will attract investment and create jobs. And these are long-term, good jobs in sectors that have decades to run. We've got the leaders of the public and private sector on Humberside committed to making this Freeport a success. And there's nothing more powerful than you have unity around the board table to get on with creating and establishing the Humber Freeport, because the opportunities are there to be grasped. So I'm really excited by this, and I'm really excited for the prospects it's going to bring to our region here.
If you've just joined us, this is the Business Day coming to you live from the Bridlington Spa. I'm Gyles Brandreth, and I'm in a state of high excitement because it's time now for the first of our trios on the sofa. Well, we don't have a sofa and we don't have a trio. Well, there are 3 of us, but there should have been 4 of us. One of us is not here. The person who isn't here is Andrew Horncastle, chairman of the Horncastle Group, founder member of For Entrepreneurs Only. And last night he contacted us. He was contacted by Test and Trace to tell him, Test and Trace is working, whatever you read in the papers, and we're getting in touch with you. And they said that he should self-isolate for 3 days. He had no symptoms, he felt great, but nonetheless, he wants to follow the rules and act responsibly, as do we all, which is why all our chairs we're not on sofas, we're all in chairs that are at least 2 meters apart. So we're taking all that quite seriously. And the teams, when they come on, they're wearing their masks and they sit down and they're at the microphones. Anyway, Andrew is disappointed not to be with us today. And we're disappointed that he isn't here. But there are apparently already many hundreds of you out there. We're expecting to hit 1,000 people watching today, which is quite exciting. And well, I'm excited now because I've got 2 special guests. Joe Barnes, Managing Director of Sewell Estates, and Tina Charuti, Managing Director at Charuti 2. Welcome. Good morning, ladies.
Morning, Gyles.
It's
Good morning,
nice to
Gyles.
see you both. Can I just, before we were chatting before we came on, through our masks, we were chatting, and I was saying how I'm trying to improve my posture. And the ladies said, how are you trying to do that? And I explained that I've recently met Mr. Motivator, and he explained to me that I've got to the age where I'm beginning to stoop. And a lot of people do this in middle age. They're at their screens all the time, and they get up from their screens, and they're still walking around like this, and I've been doing that. And he's told me that what I've got to do is, every hour, imagine I've got an orange between my shoulder blades, and then squeeze that orange until the juice trickles down my spine. And do you notice the difference? Can I show you this? Because my wife makes me at about this time in the morning, what is it? Yep, 10:15. She says, before you have the first coffee, just do the squeezing the orange juice. So do you think it improves it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
You quite liking that?
Yeah.
Because you've danced on this very stage, haven't you?
No,
Joe?
I haven't. No,
Oh.
I haven't. And I'm not going to either.
No?
So don't
You
ask
said you
me.
were. You said you were going to dance.
You said you were going to, but you are a dancer. Tell us about the steps you were doing the other day, Tina.
Well, I did 31,000 steps last Friday in the restaurant, which is about just shy of 14 miles.
Good. And this was for charity, or because you suffer from St. Vitus's dance?
It was my job.
It was your,
It was literally carrying plates.
oh, just doing your work
Yeah.
in the restaurant?
Yeah,
Oh, it's
31.
amazing. Let's begin with you, Joe. The Sewell Group. A, for those that don't know, what does it do? And B, I imagine you've had one hell of a year. How has it been?
Yeah, we're quite a diverse group. So we have some construction businesses, we have a facilities management business, an investments and development business, we have an estates consulting business, a data mapping business, and we also have quite a large retail forecourt business as well. So when you add all of that up, we are quite, I mean, you could say we get easily bored and we start new businesses, I suppose, but we're quite pleased that we've got that diverse group. And although we started in Hull and the East Riding, we are quite busy right across the north of England and beyond as well. Some of our businesses work nationally. So we had last year was awful for everybody, I think, but we managed to come through last year in quite a stable position. I think we were one of the lucky ones, Tina. I mean, and your area of business obviously was very heavily affected. A lot of our customers are in health and education, and of course needed us to be alongside them, working, supporting them during that period.
How many people do you have employed?
So around 450 at any one point.
Did you have to put people on furlough?
We had a few, certainly when we needed to. I think after the first lockdown, everything stopped on site, on our construction sites, and we have quite a lot of construction staff. And so it took several weeks for the government guidance to sort of be clearer about what we could do. And, we couldn't open the sites, so we had people that we had to stand down and support. But we did take some of our staff through the furlough scheme. But we made sure, I mean, you can imagine, the furlough scheme was brilliant, but when you've got people on decent salaries, it wasn't enough, really, for some people and their families. So we topped those salaries up to 80% for them because we have a diverse portfolio, we could. So we kept our team motivated, and then as soon as we could get back to site safely, we had the sites reopened and cracked on. Again, good Yorkshire phrase, but we cracked on and got back to helping our customers.
It's very interesting. One of the main lessons that I've learnt in business over the years is summed up in 3 words: don't dabble, focus. And that's always been a bit of a problem for me. I like doing lots of different things. But in fact, you should focus on one thing. But in fact, this last year, being diverse in what you do has been an advantage, because somebody like me who goes out into theatres and performs, that all died.
Yeah.
But because I'm also a writer, I was able to sit at my desk and write a book. And what you're telling me is that by having a diverse range of businesses, some went down, but others actually were sustained.
That's right.
Did anything get better?
Well, yeah. I mean, on the retail side of the business, and I don't run the retail side of the business. Patrick Sewell runs that business, but they saw a drop off, a complete drop off on petrol because nobody was going anywhere. But because their shops are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're based in communities, and their staff really got into the swing of helping because of course they know who their customers are. They have regulars. And they started to do home deliveries and all of that good stuff and really looked after their customers, and they saw their business grow. So that was really good. And there were some other pockets as well around the business where we were able to take on new projects, take on new customers who needed help during that period. So that was positive. But overall, we had a fairly stable year as a group, and I'm quite pleased with that. I think that was a good outcome for what could have been disastrous. And I don't think some of it is management. A lot of it was luck. We were very lucky that our industries weren't hit in the same way as hospitality, for example, and retail.
I have to say, I suspect it's only a woman business leader who would say some of it was management, but a lot of it was luck. I think most of the men would say, well, we managed to get through, with a bit of Yorkshire grit. So thank you for your honesty. What is this Gateway programme that you've got?
So we got to the end of last year, and we breathed a collective sigh of relief as directors and thought, well, we've got through that. But because we're based in the north of England, a lot of the towns and cities that we work in and a lot of the communities that we serve are in areas where there are some deprived wards, there are some people that are out of work, there are people that need opportunities. So we sort of got to the end of last year and we decided that it wasn't enough to just keep growing our own business in the way we were growing it. If we as a stable business couldn't triple our investment in young people, then what was the point, really? And we're a big believer in promoting opportunity. We have just won a Queen's Award for promoting opportunity.
Congratulations.
So yeah, the team are very pleased about that. They're really chuffed. Another Yorkshire word. So we've decided this year and for the next 5 years to triple our investment in trainees, apprentices, and graduates.
And what does that mean? Triple your investment?
So in the normal course of business, we always take on young people, and I'm not sure all the managers really appreciated when I said this to them, but we're just going to times it by 3. So if you took one person before, you take 3 people now, and that's right across the business and for 5 years, because we're going to be left with some serious unemployment issues after this pandemic, and we need to do our bit as a good local company and a good regional company to try and correct that.
But you've got to give them work. You can't just say, take on.
Yeah, I know.
So
But our business is growing as well.
Fine.
So we are growing the business. So it's perfect timing, and it's not a selfless act, this, Gyles. 3/4 of our senior management team have come to us, and this is directors, shareholders as well now, have come to us from non-traditional routes. So we hire on cultural fit and attitude, and we train people to do the rest. And if we can do that, I'm hoping that other companies will also start to see that there's a massive commercial opportunity in hiring young talent and growing your own, really. The other thing we're doing this summer is, because that's okay for people that are already in the networks and in the education system, etc., and can get onto apprenticeship programs and things like that. But what we're also doing is we're working with a local charity in Hull this summer to give paid internships to people that aren't in education or employment or training, who struggle to get onto those opportunities, because some of the young people we're talking to now, to get them ready for the summer, they don't have any ID, they don't have a national insurance number. Well, they do, but they don't have access to it. They've lost it, or they don't know where it is. Some people who live quite chaotic lives, and we're trying to work with them, with the charity, to get them work ready and to get them to understand what it feels like to be in a paid role, to set up a bank account, so that we're really living the legacy, I suppose, of that Queen's Award and really trying to do our best.
But this is wonderful. If people watching this want to know more about the detail of the Gateway program, thinking, well, maybe we should try something similar, what do they do? How do they get in touch with?
Just email me.
Very good. Just seriously, where do they find you?
Well, they can get
At the Sewell Group.
at the Sewell Group. I'm on the website. Our contact details are there. I'm on LinkedIn if anybody wants to find me. I'm on Twitter. Just message me and I'll get in touch with you.
Wonderful. Well, you're an example of. I was taught years ago that when it comes to interviewing people, I'm very bad at interviewing people for jobs. That this person said to me, you know, on the whole, experience doesn't count, qualifications don't really count. Attitude is everything. If they've got the right attitude, we can give them the experience and we can teach them what they need to know.
Absolutely.
Is that the truth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want people to care about your customers and care about each other in the work-family environment, you hire decent people with good morals, good ethics, and that care about each other and want to do a good job. And we have a little saying about doing the right thing in the Sewell Group, and we empower people to do the right thing. And sometimes doing the right thing means spending money they weren't allowed to spend, but it's fine because they did the right thing. So if you empower people to be decent human beings and treat people like adults, you tend to get it back in spades, in my experience.
Well, you're clearly doing the right thing. Congratulations. Tina, before we come to you, we've got a very short video by way of introducing you. I hope we're going to see you walking those steps. Charuti 2. The Charuti family restaurants I know you've got in Hull and Beverley. Are they your family restaurants or are they different ones? Charuti 2 is you and your brother?
Yeah.
Give us the setup. What is the heritage of Charuti and where is Charuti now?
We came from, originally our family came from Lake Majore, and my grandfather came to England in 1914 and went to the Savoy.
Oh. As a customer or to work?
To work.
Very good.
And then he moved to Harrogate, and eventually in 1958 my parents came to the East Riding and started a business in Aldborough, which is on the coast. And in 1974 we opened Charuti's in Hull, and then in 1989 I thought, I think I need to do something a bit more on my own, and I opened Charuti 2. And we now have sold Charuti 1 because there was a thought before March 2020 of maybe doing a little bit less. The word retirement or semi-retirement or maybe in the offering. Anyway, that's out the window.
So you were going to retire?
Well, not retire.
Or half retire?
Yeah, take a bit easier.
Charuti, the original Charuti, is now owned by somebody else?
No, it's gone.
It's gone, it's closed.
Gone. So there's only Charuti 2.
There's only Charuti 2. So
Yeah.
those of us think, how interesting. Well, often, usually the sequel isn't as good as the original. There are exceptions. Paddington
I'm the
2.
exception.
You are. No, well, there are other exceptions. Paddington 2, I think, is better than Paddington 1. Richard III, I think, is a better play than Richard II.
There we
And
go.
Charuti 2 is no doubt better even than Charuti was.
Well, no, I can't say that because
But-
I learnt everything from my father and I wouldn't want him to think that I
Okay.
was being disrespectful.
So, what's it been like? I mean, this time last year,
We're not allowed to swear, are we?
no, I don't think you
No,
are.
no. But can I just say, in March 2020, when we got the call or the message that at midnight we were shut, I said to the staff, now don't worry, we'll be back in a fortnight. Anyway, ever since then they've said, what do you know, Tina? How wrong could you get it? Anyway, disaster. Well, it was a disaster to start with, but the term of the day is thinking outside the box. And we had to think outside the box. You can't go from taking X to taking 0. So we started a takeaway service, we started a delivery service, anything to keep the business going. And we opened again in July, 4th of July, I think it was. Amazing. The customers came back in spades.
Oh, wonderful.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we joined the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. Well, dear, people just wanted to get out, as is happening again now. People are coming back, but when he shut us down in November the 4th, I think it was, for us, December is like harvest.
Yeah.
And we take 25% of the turnover in 4 weeks.
Really, 25% of your years. You're
Turnover.
like people in the fragrance business.
Yes.
And, you know,
It's
it's
harvest.
Christmas. It's Christmas for Charutis
Yes,
in December.
every day. Every day is Christmas Day.
And that was completely, so a quarter of your income just
yeah,
disappeared
yeah.
literally overnight.
And we have a big outside catering business, weddings, well, I'd say 4 weddings and a funeral, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And of course, that's completely gone.
Were you overwhelmed at times? Were you sort of sobbing into your
I
pillow?
didn't cry, because I did. It was the continuous, are we going to open? It's a bit like on Monday we're going to be told whether we're going to open the country up, which for us is a big impact because it would then set our outside catering business going. I suspect, I'm 50-50 now.
You look younger, but...
But no, it's been a test. But I have to say, as Joe said, it's all about the people you employ. And I have got wonderful, wonderful staff. Well, they're not staff, they're family, a team.
And how many people do you normally employ at the best of times?
10, not many.
And were you able to keep most of them on? And
Yes, we've kept them all.
Kept them all? And
Yeah,
you paid them all?
We've kept them all. We've had to furlough them,
Yeah.
but we've kept them all.
And do you think that catering is going to come back as it was, or are there going to be differences? I mean, my wife and I, we started going out again last week, whenever we were allowed to. And 2 things. One, we felt a bit tentative at first, and then we spent as much in a week as we had spent in a year, and we thought, oh, is it quite expensive? And then we thought, well, maybe we should make it more of a special occasion. And I'm wondering if we're changing our attitude to going out. I mean, do you think it's going to be different?
I think people are still going to be very cautious. But I have to tell you, people are spending money. They want to be out there.
Good.
With being able to do some outside seating, those who are a little bit worried feel safer outside. Okay, sit outside.
And what would you, when Joe and I come to discuss life and business and my midlife crisis, when we come to your place, what would you recommend? What should we be? What's your dish? What's your signature dish?
Well, we specialise in fish. We've built our
Lovely.
reputation on fish. And before I came here this morning, I went to visit my little crab and lobster man. So on my way back, I'm picking up some fresh crab and
Because
lobsters.
Bridlington, where we're coming from live, is the lobster capital of the world, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely,
this is...
absolutely. You will not find finer crab and lobster anywhere in the
Yay!
world.
Charuti too. That's fantastic.
It's a date.
If I may say so, it is a date. In the old days, I'd have made some joke about how nice it is to see Joe showing an interest in the older man, but that's totally politically incorrect now and unacceptable. And I want to be with you until 1 o'clock. So I'm not going to make any remarks like that at all, but I'm very pleased that Tina and Joe have admired my new improved posture. And I'm actually quite moved by the 2 stories that you've told. Congratulations on surviving, and here's to you thriving again. And what do you think of her idea, finally, of trying to bring in young people? Because I'm told in restaurants in London, and I know a lot of restaurateurs there, they're saying we're now having difficulty getting waiting staff and chefs of the right caliber.
It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare. And in fact, the only really way forward is exactly what Joe says. You're going to have to, well, it's not have to, we want young people in the business. But of course, the big thing is, it is an unsociable hour business.
It is, isn't it? But I think it's the excuse me, it's the loyalty that you get as well, isn't it? If you've brought somebody on it.
Well, our chef at Charuti 2 started with us at Charuti 1, as we call it, and he was 18 and he's 55.
Wow.
Well done. Great.
You must be doing something right,
But
Tina.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Fantastic. You're 2 fantastic people running 2 very different and fantastic businesses. Congratulations. Stay with us because we're going to show you an interesting film now about well, it's the Daisy Appeal, and it was established, I think, back in 2000. It's raised £12.5 million to fund cutting-edge research and state-of-the-art equipment and facilities. They're now completing an 8.2 million radiochemistry and cyclotron unit so they can produce their own radioactive tracers. This will allow them to scan patients with certain heart and neurological conditions, including Alzheimer's. There's more. Listen to this. This is about the Daisy Appeal.
Over the past 10 years in Hull, we have been developing a whole research strand around molecular imaging. And what that is, it allows clinical imaging of patients to both improve disease diagnosis and to select the best possible treatments for patients. So our research part of that goes on at the university, and that's now university laboratories. And about 2014, so just over 6 years ago, we got our fully operational positron emission tomography research centre up and working. And about the same time, in partnership with the Daisy Appeal and the Hull University's Teaching Hospital NHS Trust, clinical scanning facilities were put in that were really a step up from what was available before, so improving patient care in Hull.
After the development of the Jack Brignall Centre, we had and Steve had the preclinical set up down at the university. He needed somewhere to take his lab-developed radio tracers and put them into action clinically. And so we decided that we would go into the third phase of what Daisy has created and build the Molecular Imaging Research Centre, which is equipped with a further cyclotron that would allow us to produce radio tracers that could be used on patients for a variety of diseases.
And the Molecular Imaging Research Centre allows things to come from the Positron Emission Tomography Research Centre at the University of Hull and have impact on patients in clinical trials and new technologies for disease diagnosis at Castle Hill Hospital. The positron emission tomography imaging is really the most sensitive technique for detection of cancer. And more than that, it tells you about the biochemical function of the disease.
Molecular imaging provides many advantages over other diagnostic techniques. It provides a window really where we can look very specifically at different organs, whether it's the brain or the heart, and it can help diagnose diseases much earlier. And here in Hull, North Lincolnshire and East Riding, it's very difficult to get that kind of imaging, and the Molecular Imaging Research Centre will bring that home and prevent patients having to travel a long distance, speeding up diagnosis and hopefully increasing treatment pathways. Within the region we do have issues with major health inequalities. So we have some of the lowest life expectancies in the country, in the nation, and so we're helping tackle that, and that's something that's critical to the university's mission. Innovation is delivered more effectively when partnerships are formed. And our partnership with the NHS Trust and the Daisy Appeal really helps build an ecosystem where innovation can thrive. And that benefits not just the university and how we can have impact from our research, but helps the NHS Trust innovate as well.
So I thought this was a really good, comprehensive and integrated bench-to-bedside clinical development site, translational imaging site, which had really huge potential, untapped patient population up here, and a very good support from the university, from the NHS Trust and from Daisy Appeal.
Well, we've invested quite heavily in equipment for this setup, and I think we're spending of the order of £4 million, including the cyclotron, in some kit that is not available anywhere else in the UK in the way that it's available here. And the beauty of the setup that we have, and it's down to the architecture of Castle Hill, is that we can put a scanning centre with a cyclotron bang next to a hospital and have everything on one site.
They have a very short half-life. We have to make them on the site, and by half-life I mean the time for 50% of it to disappear. And that can be as low as minutes. And so that's why our new molecular imaging research centre is on the hospital site, right next to where the patients are scanned.
We need to remember that 1 in 2 person living in the UK would develop cancer and they would need a PET scan. So rather than travelling from Hull to some other place to have a scan, they would have scans locally. So it is a logistical benefit for the patients and also a benefit for the whole community.
I think one of the key things that we've got to remember and be grateful to the people of the region is the amazing support that we've had that's come via the fundraising from the Daisy Appeal. We hope that will continue and allow us to really equip the Molecular Imaging Research Centre to the highest level and really deliver on the potential.
Support us if you can, please. I think it's an exciting time, and I don't like to sound morbid, but many of you will have a PET-CT scan at some time in your lives. And so if you can put in the investment now, you'll get a better scan when you need one.
For people living in this area, East Riding of Yorkshire, Northern Lincolnshire, this really is a centre of excellence. For those people who have encountered the scanner and seen what it can do, it makes a huge difference. And so every little piece of money raised really makes a huge difference, from a collecting pot which we can let you have to have on your bar or counter or workplace, anything really that you want to do, that we can help to support you.
Now here's the bit that you can help with. We're looking for commitment. We're looking for businesses to say, we're going to get behind for a full 12 months. Please go to the site, please look at all the information that's there, and then please contact me and let's get you involved fundraising for the Daisy Appeal.
If you've just joined us, this is the Business Day coming to you live from the Bridlington Spa. I'm Gyles Brandreth, and I'm on the stage at the Bridlington Spa, and I'm thrilled to be here. You are watching wherever you are, in your office, at home. Some of you don't seem to realize, and we're nearly up to 1,000 people, I think, viewing at the moment. People come, people go. Feel free to stay with us. We're here till 1 o'clock or just after. Some people don't realize that they've actually left their cameras on. And so we can actually see a few of you. And Emma Pearson-Kendall from Fred Marketing. Very nice Jim Jams, but I'm not sure you necessarily want to be sharing them with us in the way that you are. Okay, just mentioning that in passing. And Steve Foster, is that your home? Yeah, well, I'm just asking. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We've got somebody very special. I come to the stage here because I want to introduce somebody who's been a lifelong hero of mine. And I'm so thrilled that the Business Day have managed to get him as our very special guest this morning. Would you please welcome, yes, it's James Mason. And here he is. Yeah, solitary applause. It's good of you. I must say, you have worn incredibly well. You're looking a lot fresher and younger than I expected. I've admired your work since the first movie I saw in which you appeared was Julius Caesar, 1952. I saw it later than that, the mid-50s. Black and white, Marlon Brando. I forget the part you played, but you were magnificent. So what's it like being called James Mason, James Mason?
Well, Giles, I hate to disappoint you, of course, and good morning. And yes, I'm looking okay for a man who's been dead for 20 years, aren't I? And it's interesting that you've mentioned my name. Of course, when I was growing up in West Yorkshire, of course, the James Mason was from Huddersfield, of course, and went on to star in many movies, Spring and Port Wine, of course, Julius Caesar, as you mentioned. And, of course, people ask me as I've got older, you must be related to him. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? So I started asking my mum and dad who he was, etc., this famous actor. And, of course, as time went on, oh, grandfather, yes, oh, dear old thing, etc. But we do have something in common, James Mason and I. He was, of course, a Hollywood actor, star of stage and screen, very handsome, that's where it ends. But I did have a very small walk-on part in All Creatures Great and Small, of course. And there may be the odd picture that comes up on the screen now of when I was an 8-year-old boy, Colin Appleby, with, of course, Siegfried Farn and the great Robert Hardy and Christopher Timothy. So there are links with the great James Mason, but I'm a poor imitation. So I hope I haven't disappointed you.
You haven't disappointed me at all. Your parents have slightly disappointed me, in a sense, because it was quite a bold thing to call, because James Mason, when you were born, was even more famous then.
Yes.
I mean, in the 1950s, 1960s, when I was growing up, he was truly world famous and very controversial. I remember when I was a child, because he played the part of the man in Lolita.
Yes.
That was all considered, oh my goodness, James Mason. He was married many times. What were your parents thinking?
Well, there is a story, of course, to this. I'm James Matthew Mason, and I was supposed to be Matthew James. And my cousin, who also lived not far from us in Bradford, was born a month just before me, Matthew Galvin. And, of course, my mother and father just went, we can't have another Matthew in the family. Let's switch it round. And there the story begins, a lifetime of, what on earth were your mum and dad thinking of calling you James? Well, but it's probably worked in our favour.
You're lucky. You could have been called Lilibet.
Exactly. Or Perry.
Now,
I get that.
The reason that you are here is because you are now the guy who runs Welcome to Yorkshire. But give me what your background here. You were in sports journalism, weren't you? And I first saw you, I think, on BBC doing the final score. But what is your story before we find out what you're doing now, why we're wearing this with pride?
Yeah, well, like many little boys in Yorkshire, I wanted to be a cricketer, of course, or a footballer. And I failed miserably at sport. But when I went to watch my hometown Bradford City, or if I was at Headingley with my family or my father, I'd say, what are those people up there that are typing away or writing away and watching the game and eating sandwiches and drinking tea free of charge? And he said, they're journalists. And I thought, well, what's a journalist? Oh, journalists get paid to watch and write about sport. And I thought, well, I'm no use on the field, so I'll think about going into writing about it or broadcasting. And that was just a plan for me. So when I left university, I spent a year going around the world to the Aztec Stadium in Mexico, the Olympic Games in Sydney, watching cricket and rugby in South Africa, and a life in sports journalism was for me. And I was lucky enough to be given a place in the BBC trainee scheme, and it went from there. I've covered National Cheese Day in Somerset, I've covered the Glass Factory in Sunderland, and then I got a dream job covering football in Yorkshire for the BBC Final Score and television, covering Hull City and their wonderful rise up the Premier League, which Steve Parnaby would have enjoyed, Grimsby Town, Halifax Town, Leeds United, and eventually I got to actually work on the BBC's World Service, which was a dream come true, to say not only good morning Bridlington, but good morning Bulawayo, good morning wherever it was in the world. So yeah, that's my journey, and I'm a storyteller, and now I have the wonderful privilege of telling Yorkshire's story to the world. And isn't it a privilege? You know, we're here in Bridlington today, and I have a question for you, Gyles, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
I've seen you often on Dictionary Corner, on Countdown, and I'm wondering if you can tell us what the word mafting means. People out there will know that, but what does mafting mean?
Mafting. Now, normally, I would be able to turn to my friend Susie Dent. Susie Dent, who is the resident lexicographer in Dictionary Corner, she and I do a weekly podcast together called Something Rhymes with Purple. It's all about words and language. And I would be able to ask her about that. What did you say again? What's the word?
Mafting. M-A-F-T-I-N-G. It's not rude.
I've no idea what mafting is.
Okay, well, here we are on the Yorkshire coast. It's sunny outside. It's muggy, actually. It's quite close. It's quite warm. So mafting would be that. You would say it's mafting outside out there, etc. If you're in West Yorkshire, you'd probably say it's muggy. It's a bit close. And that's Yorkshire, isn't it, in a nutshell, with this wonderful big county of 4 distinct parts: east, north, south, west. And actually, another question for you. What does Yorkshire have in common with Oman, New Zealand, Denmark, Norway? Can you guess?
I can't always understand what's being said to me in those parts of the world. No, I can't guess. Tell me.
We have bigger populations or similar populations to the size of Denmark. Can you believe it? New Zealand,
grief.
Ireland, and there are many other countries.
Oh, that's amazing. Give me the list again. Oman.
I've got a list here, just in case you asked. Norway, Oman, New Zealand, Croatia, Ireland, Scotland, the list goes on.
If we look like Irish line dancers, but without the full complement, that's because we are being very careful today, and we're staying at all times 2 meters apart.
Indeed.
So if you come close to me, I move apart from you, exactly. And when I come close to you, you move. No,
well, we're on a stage. We can tap dance, Gyles.
Well, you possibly can. Well, that is amazing.
It
so
is.
This is as big as many of the great countries of the world, and in a way it is its own great country.
It is. We have the Yorkshire flag. We have the coastline outside there. We have 3 national parks, the North York Moors, the Yorkshire Dales, and of course the north of the Peak District. We've 7 Michelin-star restaurants. We've got vibrant street food. We've got cities like Hull, Leeds, Bradford, Sheffield, York, of course. But we've also got micro communities that have blossomed over the last 12 months, and we'll probably come on to the last 12 months, which has been a really difficult period in Yorkshire, but across the world. But Yorkshire really is God's own county, it's God's own country, and we're very proud to share our commonalities and our differences. I'm a Westie, I'm from West Yorkshire, I'm from Bradford, but our colleagues in South Yorkshire, our colleagues in East and North Yorkshire have that golden thread of hospitality, of bluntness, of personality. But boy, oh boy, what an opportunity that awaits us this summer. And we have to get people across the world, but first and foremost domestically thinking, Yorkshire. Let's think of Yorkshire first. And Yorkshire.com, which is our website, gets around 12 million visitors a year. So it's a hungry animal. But people still from the southeast or Merseyside or Scotland type in things like, does Yorkshire have a beach? Is there a city in Yorkshire? So there's a big piece of education still to go on.
And is Welcome to Yorkshire mainly about tourism? Is the main focus bringing people from outside Yorkshire into Yorkshire to spend money on tourism?
Exactly.
That is the focus, is it?
Historically, yeah, we focus on the visitor economy, trying to grow Yorkshire's name across the county, across the UK, and then, of course, across the world. We've put on events such as the Tour de Yorkshire, the wonderful cycling event that's brought the world's attention on Yorkshire. But over the last year, we've realised that actually with the 5 million people that we've got, if we focus on our doorstep to start with and explain that Bridlington's only an hour away from Leeds or York, etc. We've got Bradford and so on and so forth, of course, for the heritage trails, and we've got South Yorkshire with its deep heritage. We can really capture people's attention here. And actually, if we can spread this out and say, can we get students to move to Yorkshire, to study here, and then see career opportunities to work and live here, we then build the visitor economy without having to think about the wider world. But we're going to do that anyway. That's coming back. Next year, international tourists are coming back, and we must be ready. We must get that product right whereby our bustling market towns, our vibrant coastal towns, our cities are ready to welcome people from outside the county. But first and foremost, we want everyone in Yorkshire to be ambassadors and sing that song.
Well, my modest contribution is that my teddy bear collection has come to live at Newby Hall near Ripon. Have you yet been to Newby Hall?
Certainly have, yeah, know it well.
Newby Hall, fantastic gardens, fantastic house built by Christopher Wren. I went there a few years ago to film for the One Show because in the event that the Nazis had landed in London during the Second World War, the royal family, the King, the Queen, and their children, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret Rose, would have come to Yorkshire, of course, because they knew they'd be safe in Yorkshire, and they'd have gone to Newby Hall because it was a little bit isolated, and it was friends of theirs who owned Newby Hall. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for the royal family, it's good enough for my teddy bears. And the lovely family there said, well, we've already got dolls' houses. Why don't we build you a Brandreth bear house in the garden? And now that's where all my 1,000 teddy bears, including the original Fozzie bear, live. And one of the things I discovered is there are so many unexpected attractions in Yorkshire. It's a place full of surprises.
Yeah, expect the unexpected in Yorkshire. And interestingly enough, Newby Hall, and we've been with the children to see your teddy bear collection, has the wonderful gardens, the parks, but of course the miniature railway, and they are looking for a full-time driver, Gyles. So if things don't work out on Gogglebox, we'll get your CV in. And interestingly enough, you mentioned the parks, the gardens, the coastline, and the cities that we've got. Yorkshire, for the last year or so in my role, has been a beautiful place to explore on our doorstep. You come out of the garden, the house in the morning, and you turn left or you turn right because we were forced to explore what was on our doorstep. And we invented a campaign called Walkshire. There you go, for the wordsmiths out there. Walking in Yorkshire.
Walkshire in Yorkshire.
Exactly. And walking became the new rock and roll. It's all we could do, wasn't it? But we saw herons nesting, we saw lily ponds, we saw canals that we didn't know. And we put a little video together to really sum up the diversity of the people of Yorkshire, but also the beautiful landscape and urban walkways. And there's a little minutes video on Walkshire.
Oh, let's look at it. Let's go walking with Walkshire. What I love about that is that it's actually turning enthusiasm into action, because it's quite easy to bounce around saying Yorkshire is great. Well, we all know that. But actually, how do you translate that into something that makes a difference to the economy? What's next for you?
Well, just on that, and thank you, Gyles. What we love about the campaign is it's totally inclusive. Everyone can walk.
Yeah.
Even our wheelchair users class themselves as walkers, and Hannah Cockcroft, the great Paralympian, is one of our ambassadors. We've knocked down the barriers of cost of entry. You can walk anywhere. But of course, Yorkshire was born out of the fact that we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. But the Tour de Yorkshire, our big cycle race, will be coming back next year. It's had a 2-year hiatus because of the pandemic. But we're so excited about that moving postcard of the region. But also, we realise that we can't just be walking and cycling. We've got so much more to offer. So food and drink in Yorkshire is going to be our golden thread for 2022. Whether it's the Pipe and Glass restaurant just down the road near Beverley, or whether it's cockles and mussels on the seafront here, Yorkshire has such a vibrant provenance. We've got breweries coming from every corner of the county. And I sampled maybe one or two last night, might I add, Gyles. And so food and drink will be a golden thread next year. Arts, heritage, culture going forward. But the key theme for the next year, Gyles, is to get East, North, South and West Yorkshire to work together. You know, we're looking at, sometimes with green envy, at what the Northwest under Andy Burnham are doing. We've now got 2 mayoral authorities. We'll possibly have a 3rd and a 4th going forward. We need to realise Yorkshire's potential as the loudspeaker for the UK. Everything that's happening in the UK right now is happening in Yorkshire. And we really need to harness that. Business owners, public sector. We're not out of the woods yet with our financial position, and if Welcome to Yorkshire was to go, we'd be worse off. So what we've got to do is secure some public and private funding. But actually, let's wrap our arms around everyone in the world, and before you leave this stage, I'm going to make you an honorary Yorkshireman. That's one honour that I can offer, because we've launched a personal membership over the last few months. On August the 1st last year, Sir Captain Tom Moore, arguably Yorkshire's most famous exile, unfortunately until his passing, but he'll be long remembered, of course, became our first ever personal member. And when we mentioned the 5 million people that New Zealand have, etc., we can really make Yorkshire great by investing in our people and planting trees for them. So we launched a personal membership, and on the screen now you'll see Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Tom Moore there, who are advocates of Yorkshire. And we've also got Amanda Owen, who's the Yorkshire Shepherdess. And this is a wonderful scheme that for £25 people can buy in and really put their roots down. And let me tell you a very quick story, Gyles. Back in August when we launched this, we had a reverend from Winnipeg in North America who emailed, and I won't do his accent because I can't do it, and perhaps he was a Yorkshireman. He said, my dear grandfather was from Barnsley. That's a terrible accent, by the way, isn't it? But he said he always wanted his body buried in Yorkshire, but of course we latterly lived in Winnipeg. So we're going to put his ashes in the Red River, and hopefully they'll float back to Yorkshire eventually. But if we can plant a tree for him, then we've done our job. So today, Gyles, we're going to make you an honorary Yorkshireman. Your own certificate. This is to certify that Welcome to Yorkshire has planted 1 native broadleaf tree for Gyles Brandreth. Don't know how COVID works, but I'll pass it there to you.
That's it.
And
We'll sanitise it later.
We've also got a green badge for you, and you can go onto yorkshire.com/trees, and everyone, whether you're a family member that lives in Barnsley or in Beverley or Hessel or Hull, you can buy into this and actually make Yorkshire even greater and greener than it is today.
I'm very excited about this,
So
because
you tweet about it later.
I shall be tweeting about it and Instagramming about it. It's Gyles B1, incidentally, if you do Twitter. And I will, if I may, buy an extra tree for my great-grandfather, who came from Bradford. He was the keeper of the poorhouse in Bradford. I'm not quite sure what that involved. I think he worked his way up to being, as it were, the person in charge. He obviously thought he was quite important because he had his portrait painted by a man called Thompson. I still have this painting. And Thompson was famous. He was a local artist. He famously painted, when he was younger, a picture of one of the Bronte sisters. He was a friend of Branwell Bronte. Anyway, I've got this painting of my great-grandfather, keeper of the poorhouse in Bradford, and in his memory, I would like to plant a tree. So I think that's marvellous. And of course, next year is a tree planting year nationally because of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and the idea being to plant a plant the Queen's canopy. So Yorkshire people, let's plant trees. What a lovely idea. And where will these be planted?
Well, at the moment they're planted in Nidderdale, but we've also got a site out at Williams Den that people will know in East Yorkshire. We've got a place in South Yorkshire and North Yorkshire, because, of course, if you're from Bradford or if you're from Hull, you want it planting in your area. And just one quick thank you to a lot of businesses, actually, that have bought into this as a philanthropic way to give back to their staff. on the back of COVID, but actually lots of charitable donations. So we went out to Hull Homeless just a couple of weeks ago and gave them to all the workers there and some of the people that actually don't have roots to put down.
Yeah.
They don't have a house. So there's an opportunity there to do some CSR campaigning around that. We're not for profit, so no one's getting rich here, but we're planting trees. We're making people really proud in the county.
You mention there are various charities, and you do good works as well. Tell me a little bit about this cafe that you started.
Yeah, the Bradford Memories Cafe is something quite personal to me. My mother lives with dementia, and she has done for the past 8 years, which is a terrible disease, so I sympathise with anyone out there. Don't get me going, by the way, Gyles, but this is something really close to my heart, because when my mother and I went in to see the doctor, because we were aware that there was something wrong when she started referring to the sheep and the cows in the sky that were actually playing. And I said, Mum, they're playing. I said that. We realised...
What age was she at this time?
She was only 62.
Ooh.
She'd been a nurse all her life.
So this is early onset dementia.
Yeah, looking after people all her life. She was bright as a bobbin, as we'd say, where I'm from. She was meticulous, and all of a sudden she was forgetting things. And when the diagnosis was given, it was, Mr. Mason, your mother's got dementia. Well, you can tell her that. Well, you're now her carer, mate. You're now her carer for the rest of her life. And now she's almost like my daughter. She walks around with a little teddy, maybe one of yours. But the purpose of the Bradford Memories Cafe, and we could set one up in Hull, Leeds, Sheffield, wherever, is just to bring back memories for people that have sadly lost the present. But the past is so important. And she can sing. She can't converse with me, but she can sing. And we sing a bit of Kenny Rogers or whatever, and it's beautiful. So it's a not-for-profit charity in Bradford, but it's just set up by good-meaning people that just want to give a bit of respite to carers, because, of course, with every dementia sufferer, there's a network of people that really struggle.
It's a lovely idea. Congratulations on creating it. And let's, perhaps today, people will have been inspired to start cafes of their own. Exactly. You call it the Memory Cafe.
Yeah, and when we say cafe, it doesn't exist. So we meet in parks, we meet...
Oh, it's a virtual cafe, as it were. Just the idea of getting together over a cup of tea or coffee and sharing a memory.
Because, of course, the cost of opening a cafe is prohibitive. But there's lots of businesses out there, especially now with spaces, rent that can give the rents for free. Just get people back into society.
While we're talking about that, I'll mention a project of mine called Poetry Together, which you can find out more about at poetrytogether.com, where we get children, school children, to learn a poem by heart, and then go and visit older people in care homes, who exactly like this, some will have dementia, some won't, but who remember poems from their childhood. And we get the young people and the old people to do the Owl and the Pussycat together. And tea, cake, small kids, elderly people, having fun.
Beautiful.
Sharing memories.
That's what it's all about.
Well, clearly, James Mason, you're a very good man. I'm
a lucky man.
You've got a fantastic job. You've got a great product to sell, a wonderful logo, and you now have an extra honorary Yorkshireman. Well, it's in my blood.
But as a Yorkshireman, you're going to have to pay for that one, Giles. Let's get this right.
Yeah, well done. Now, I'm going to move centre stage. You've got to move back a couple of feet. Don't go away, though, because you'll want to see this. I'm going to introduce a little video now about a business called JZ Flowers, not JZ. That's a different Gether Alter thing. JZ Flowers. It's a family business, leading producer of floral bouquets for UK retailers as well as around the world. They're based in Newport, here in East Yorkshire. And for those eagle-eyed watching, all the flowers you see on display today, they're not on this stage, are they? Actually, this stage rather reminds me, a few years ago, I hosted the British Funeral Directors Awards. And it's a remarkable event, actually. And when you get a prize at the Funeral Directors Awards, what happens is you get the prize. Normally it's an awards ceremony. Have you won awards?
Never.
Well, when you do, you'll find you get given the trophy, you say thank you very much, and then you go back to your seat. Not at the Funeral Directors Awards. There, you get given a trophy, and then you have to go backwards, holding the trophy, to the back of the stage where the curtains part, and you disappear behind them. Anyway, that's my cue to introduce to you the work of JZ Flowers. Take a close look.
Welcome to JZ Flowers. We're a leading producer of floral bouquets in the UK, Ireland, and more globally. Gyles Flowers was started by my father, Gyles Brandreth. He was a typical Flying Dutchman. He would buy flowers from the auctions in Ellesmere, Holland, and bring them over to the Yorkshire region to sell to florists in the local area. However, in the late 1990s, he saw the potential to sell to supermarkets, and that's when he decided to open his own pack house in Hull and focus on this channel of the market. Shortly after this, we started a small operation in the Lincolnshire area to focus on British seasonal flowers, firstly focusing on daffodils, which we sold to UK retailers and across Europe. This part of our business has grown significantly since then, and it's a real strength of what we do. Gyles Flowers has bloomed into a vibrant organisation. We still have our head office here in Newport, but we also have our sites in Lincolnshire, Nace Island, and a small operation in the USA and Turkey. People are absolutely key to what we do, and many of our staff have been with us for many years, progressing in the business as we've grown. We now have over 750 people working across our sites. Gyles Flowers is also part of the Dutch Flower Group, a unique group of floral companies that serve the entire floriculture chain. Together, we strive to enhance the lives of everybody in our value chain, whether that's the growers, the people that work with us in our factories, or the end consumer that enjoy our flowers in their vases at home. We're looking to do this with the lowest possible environmental impact, so we together can create a happier and greener world.
The floral journey starts in the design room, and this is where our beautiful bouquets are made. We work very closely with the commercial team and plan a year in advance, looking at trends from around the world and the best-selling bouquets in the floral market. We attend various trade fairs and flower shows to incorporate new varieties into our ranges. Our designers work closely with our buyers and suppliers to stay close to the latest developments of flower variants, guaranteeing that our ideas are fresh, innovative, and that we create concepts that may not have been seen anywhere else in the market. Because of the volumes we supply, our commercial and design team has to work closely with the procurement, manufacturing and technical teams to ensure that what they design is achievable. We can design beautiful bouquets, but the flowers and packaging need to be available in commercial volumes. The bouquets need to be able to be constructed at scale, and all of them must meet the vase life guarantees we promise our customers. All this preparation needs to be done to ensure a successful floral bouquet launch.
At Gyles Flowers, we focus on sustainable, ethical sourcing through long-term direct partnerships with select UK and global growers. We have a formal ethical trade programme in place, and we are members of the Floriculture Sustainability Initiative to drive sustainable and ethical trading practices within our own business and our supply chain. We pride ourselves on the fact that our suppliers have grown with us over the years, and that together we drive ethical trading standards for workers within our supply chain while supplying fresh, quality products for our customers. Gyles are a trusted and proud member of the Fair Trade organisation. Between 2018 and 2020, we've sourced over 73 million stems and produced over 660,000 euros in premiums, which have been generated and invested back into the farms and back into the workers within our supply chain across Zambia, Ethiopia and Kenya. One farm we have built a long-standing relationship with is Herberg Roses, based in Ethiopia. Our long-term commitment to them has never been stronger, and we recently agreed to buy their entire crop, producing approximately 100 million stems of roses per annum. This type of cooperation enables us to get further involved in variety composition, quality and supply chain improvements, which all result in a more efficient way of working for both companies and finally resulting in an excellent, reliable product for the end consumer. And most importantly, providing the security to the workers at Herberg in Ethiopia.
Our flowers arrive from all over the world. Once the stems arrive at site, they are unloaded into our chilled, controlled warehouse, put away and inspected for quality purposes. Once quality approved, all our stems are booked into our warehouse management system, carefully checked and picked, ready for production. Our warehouse operatives then go around with pick sheets, carefully selecting the required products for that day's orders. Our highly skilled operatives carefully bunch and pack the flowers before the products are placed into the transit packaging for supermarket and online retailers, with line quality checks taking place throughout the process. It is at this point where we also take samples from each order to analyse them in our vase life room. This process allows you to test the product is meeting ours and our customers' high standards. The finished products are then organised to be picked and loaded onto transport for dispatch. Our new port facility is the largest in the UK and Ireland. We convert around 44 million stems per year into bouquets for all of our retailers.
Our work only continues when flowers hit the stores. Every week we go out and visit all the major retailers to see how the bouquets are performing and what other people are doing in the market. We also purchase the sales data so we can see what's performing well and what new lines are launching. All of this allows our commercial team to analyse what's happening in the market and what we should plan for future ranges so we can maximise sales for our own customers. Ultimately, everything that we do combines to create a vibrant and attractive bouquet that fills people's homes full of colour and happiness.
Here we are. I'm Gyles Brandreth. This is coming to you live from the Bridlington Spa. This is the Business Day 2021. We're here in person. You're there in person, but we're communicating virtually. Do stay with us. You're earning CPD points as you sit there, or even as you stand there, because every hour, on the hour nowadays, I am doing what Mr. Motivator has told me to do. I'm standing up and I'm squeezing an imaginary orange between my shoulder blades until the juice of it trickles down my spine. This is going to make me stand up properly because I'm developing a real dowager's hump, partly because I'm getting older, but also because I'm sitting at my screen all day long. And this helps, you see? Squeeze that orange, squeeze it really hard, and as the juice trickles down your spine, you realize you're an inch taller and feel a lot better. So thank you, Mr. Motivator, for that. Lots of excitement. We've got coming up, our trio in a moment is going to include Tim Ricks from J.R. Ricks & Sons, Dominic Gibbons from the Whiteland Group, and Diana Taylor from Marketing Humber. We're also, speaking of Humber, we're going to be seeing something about the work of Humber Rescue, Bishop Burton College, and Hull Animal Welfare Trust in the Humber region. I thought I might use this moment, though, to share with you some recollections of the Duke of Edinburgh. The reason I'm doing this is because I've written a biography of the Duke of Edinburgh, which when I arrived today, I was thrilled to see was on our set here. And I was lucky enough to get to know Prince Philip, who would have been 100 years of age yesterday. He was born on the 10th of June, 1921, on the island of Corfu. His parents were Prince Andrew of Greece and Princess Andrew of Greece. He himself, Prince Philip, was very royal, descended on his father's side from the kings of Greece and Denmark, and indeed he was related to almost every king, Kaiser, Tsar you can imagine. And on his mother's side, he was directly descended from Queen Victoria. He was a great-great-grandson of Queen Victoria, just as the Queen, the present Queen, Elizabeth II, is a great-great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria. So he was hugely royal. But the Prince Andrew of Greece was a figure in the Greek royal family, son of the King of Greece, but things were difficult in the 1920s in Greece. Prince Philip's grandfather, the King of Greece, had been assassinated. And Prince Philip's father, in the year that he was born, was actually put on trial in a show trial, and the family fled into exile. Prince Philip was born at a house, lovely house, called Mont Repos on the island of Corfu. If you go there for a holiday, you can visit the house. It looks a bit sad now because it's all empty. All the furniture was sold in 1932. And that is why yesterday, 24 hours ago, I found myself sitting at a table. And the table I was sitting at 24 hours ago was the very table on which Prince Philip was born 100 years ago. The doctors wanted his mother to be lying on a hard surface, And the doctor was a little bit elderly because he'd already delivered Prince Philip's 4 older sisters. And so he didn't want the mother on the floor, he wanted her on a hard surface, and they chose the dining room table. Well, when the dining room table was put up for sale in 1932, all the contents of the house were sold, an Englishman bought it for 7,000 drachmas. And it's ended up in a boardroom in the city of London. And if you go to Twitter, Gyles B1 is my, how you get hold of me, or Instagram, you'll find a picture of me sitting at that table. Anyway, I got to know Prince Philip because I became involved in a charity called the National Playing Fields Association. It's the National Trust of Recreational Space. It's now called Fields in Trust. And it looks after playgrounds, sports facilities, protects them for all time. If you've got a threatened playing field near you and you want to protect it, get hold of Fields in Trust. And in 1947, when Prince Philip of Greece became Philip Mountbatten and married the Queen and then became the Duke of Edinburgh, the first national charity that he took on was the National Playing Fields Association. And many years later, I became involved in that charity and was surprised to find, when I went to the offices, that there he was, sitting in the office, actually running the show. And he was so different from the character that I'd read about. He was good-humoured, he was easy to get on with, he was incredibly dynamic. His energy was colossal. And he was very focused, he was a pragmatist. And I liked working for him and with him. And I got to know him quite well over the years. People sometimes say, were you friends? And I always think that's a bit difficult when it comes to, how friendly can you be? Well, you can be friendly, but how much of a friend can you be with somebody who is married to the head of state and is anyway 25 years your senior? But and also I was reminded of a line that was given to me by James Callaghan, former British Prime Minister, who once said, you've got to remember, senior royalty, they offer you friendliness, not friendship. There is a difference, remember that. And I always did remember that. But he certainly showed me many acts of friendliness. For example, when in the 1990s I told him I was hoping to become an MP, he fell about laughing. He said, MP, what do you know about being an MP? Have you ever been to Westminster? And I told him I hadn't. So he said, well, I can get you in. I said, really? And he said, well, there's a state opening of Parliament next week. And he invited me to go as his guest and the guest of the Queen to the state opening of Parliament, which was marvellous. And the following week, after the election, the week after the election, I was elected as the MP for the city of Chester in 1992. The Queen and Prince Philip happened to be coming to Chester Cathedral, for the Maunday distribution of the Maunday money at Chester Cathedral. And there was a big ceremony in the Chester Town Hall before that, because Chester was being made into a city, and our mayor was being turned into a Lord Mayor. It was a big occasion for all the councillors, and they were all there at the front, and the poor new MP was right at the back of the room. But the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh came into the room with the Lord Mayor, and the Duke of Edinburgh caught sight of me at the back of the room. And he stopped the Queen, and he said, hold on. And he went to the back of the room and said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm the new Member of Parliament. He said, you're not. They didn't elect you, did they? Couldn't believe it. Anyway, he brought me forward, introduced me to the Queen. And I have to say, it was a wonderful moment to see all the councillors so discomforted by me being brought from the back to the front. And then, 5 years later, when I lost my seat, when the people spoke, they decided they'd had enough of me, he called up Prince Philip and said, well, what are you going to do now? And I said, well, I'm going to go back into journalism. And he said, is there anything I can do to help? And I said, well, I'd love to do an interview with you. Would you consider that? And he very kindly gave me an interview. And I think it was one of the very few, if not the only, personal interview he's ever given. Because he never liked talking about himself. But it led to me writing, at his invitation for his 80th birthday, a short biography of him. And I developed that over the years, and it ended up as this book here, Philip, the Final Portrait. But I have to say, writing about him wasn't easy, because I knew he was going to read it all. So, for example, when I took it to him, scrunching across the gravel to go into Buckingham Palace to deliver my manuscript, I was very nervous. And then he called me in, and he began to question what I'd written in the book. Not the facts. He was happy with the facts, but anything to do with conjecture. He had reservations about journalists, to put it mildly. not about facts, but the colouring of facts. So, for example, I had written that in the early 1930s, Prince Philip's father had floated down to the south of France to live, as it turns out, with a girlfriend on a boat, because Prince Philip had this strange start to life, born, as I mentioned, 100 years ago in Corfu, but almost immediately went into exile with his 4 older sisters and his parents. They travelled through Italy and went to live in Paris with one of Prince Philip's uncles in exile. But by the time Prince Philip was 10, by 1930, the family had broken up. Prince Philip's 4 older sisters had married different German princes. Prince Philip's mother had had a nervous breakdown and was in an asylum and didn't see her son for several years. Not a Christmas card, not a birthday card, not a postcard, no communication of any kind. He never complained about this in any way, he just accepted that it's what happened. And his father floated down to the south of France to live with his girlfriend on a yacht. And Prince Philip said to me, "What are you saying about my father floating down to the south of France? Why do you say my father floated down to the south of France?" I said, "Well, sir, I was trying to convey the fact that your father, Prince Andrew of Greece, was something of a boulevardier, enjoyed a glass of wine and a well-turned ankle, and I thought the expression floated down to the south of France conveyed that rather well, sir." And Prince Philip looked at me and said, "My father did not float down to the south of France. My father went by train." He was a stickler for getting it right. For example, during the Second World War, Prince Philip served, I put in the book, he said, "You've got, yeah, you can say I served on HMS Ramillies." I said, "Well, you did serve on HMS Ramillies." Prince Philip, in the 1930s, came to school in Britain and then joined the Royal Navy and served with distinction during the Second World War, mentioned in dispatches in 1941. And he said, "I didn't serve on HMS Ramillies." I said, "You did, sir. You kindly lent me the logbooks. I've got it all here. You served on HMS Ramillies." He said, "I did not serve on HMS Ramillies." I said, "You did." He said, "I did not. I didn't serve on HMS Ramillies. I served in HMS Ramillies. You don't live on your house, do you? You live in your house. Don't you know anything?" So he could be quite a challenging person. Indeed, he liked to be challenging. He was a very questing individual. I think the 2 words that came most often out of his mouth were, "Yes, but." And he was a man that I admired hugely because he was very interesting and he had to create a role for himself. He was in the Royal Navy and successful. Indeed, Lord Lewin, who eventually became Chief of the Defence Staff, told me, and he'd known him in the war, that had he been able to carry on with his naval career, he would have gone straight to the top. But he had to give it up because, of course, the Queen became Queen in 1952, and he then became her consort and had to do what he did successfully for more than 70 years, walk 2 steps behind her. And he never failed to show up on the right day in the right uniform, not always in the right mood, but he did his thing and was marvellous at it. He occasionally got into trouble because, as he said to me, you know, if you meet, as he did, thousands of people, literally thousands of events, as he would go down the line, shaking people's hands, he always tried to make somebody laugh. And if you do that, if you risk telling jokes, now and again, you're going to get into trouble. And he wasn't particularly politically correct. He just spoke his mind. But he always aimed to be entertaining. And he reflected his generation. He was a great reader of military history. He was a voracious reader, had a huge variety of interests. But he didn't read a lot of fiction. He read a lot of history, some political history, a lot of military history. And I know he read several biographies of Napoleon. And he had a family relationship with Napoleon. One of his uncles had married a descendant of the Emperor Napoleon. And Napoleon once said that if you want to understand a man, you should look at what the world was like in the year that man turned 21. And Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, turned 21 in 1942. And he reflects, his life reflects absolutely that generation, sometimes known as the greatest generation. He did have a stiff upper lip. He didn't believe in the hugging culture, the let it all hang out culture. That wasn't for him. He was a man who did his bit in the war and didn't talk about it. He hated talking about himself, and he had good reason for that. He was interested in Jung, Carl Jung, the psychologist Carl Jung, founder of, one of the founders of modern analytical psychology. And Carl Jung taught that looking out is better than looking in, that being outward looking, upward looking will make you happier. Indeed, Jung did a survey of all his patients towards the end of his career and came to the conclusion that the happiest of his patients had been the people who were interested in the world beyond themselves, in science, in nature, in art, in life outside of themselves. And he found that looking down and in made you unhappy, looking up and out made you happy. And Duke of Edinburgh's rule was never talk about yourself, talk about other people, take an interest in what other people are doing. And I think he would have enjoyed being here today, not to hear me talking about him, because he didn't like hearing me talk about him. Indeed, he was quite tough if ever I did talk about him in his presence. The last time we did a fundraising event together was at Buckingham Palace about 10 years ago. So he was already in his 90s. But in his 90s, I have to tell you, the last time I saw him in action in his 90s, he was 96. It was the Duke of Edinburgh's Gold Award ceremony, and it was at St James's Palace, and there was a dais that he was going to stand on, and he arrived, and he met all the young people, shook their hands, did his stuff, and then he was due to speak, and he was 96. He ran towards the dais and jumped up onto it and spoke. And I don't think there's any other 99-year-old who I know of who never walked with a stick. I don't know if he knew Mr. Motivator. I don't know if he did my thing of squeezing his shoulders so that the orange juice was trickling down his back, but his posture was impeccable. He was a remarkable individual, and it was wonderful to have the privilege of knowing him. And in recent weeks, as well as interesting for people, I think, to discover what he was like, to learn much more about him, and that's why I'm so pleased that my book has been a bestseller, because it means people are reading about him and the variety of him, what an interesting person he was, and remembering what he was like many years ago when he was so young and vital and dynamic. People will have been thinking about the Queen, because they were cousins. They'd met in the 1930s, they fell in love in the 1940s, they married in 1947, the Queen became Queen in 1952. And so all her life, she had this extraordinary man at her side, and now she doesn't have. And she said a few years ago about something else, another death, she came up with this wonderful line that grief is the price we pay for love. So one feels for her in her grief. But it's very interesting to me to see her approach to grief is not to become broody and introspective, but to be outgoing and to carry on with her work. And they were a fascinating double act to see them in action together, because the Queen is the Queen, of course, and there's an invisible moat around her at all times. Nobody can treat the Queen quite normally, except for the Duke of Edinburgh, you know. And nobody could treat her as an ordinary woman, except for the Duke of Edinburgh. Nobody could say, nobody could call the Queen what he called her, or speak to her as he did. I heard him calling her cabbage quite often. Nobody could treat her as a normal woman, and nobody, apart from the Queen, could say to Prince Philip, "Oh, Philip, do shut up." And she did. Time for me to shut up on that and introduce what's coming next. So much happening between now and 1 o'clock. In a moment, we've got 3 fascinating people from the world of business to share their stories with us. But first, I want to tell you a little bit of something about the Hull Animal Welfare Trust. Based in South Cave, East Yorkshire, it's been going for quite a few years, I think since 1982. They've rehomed more than 30,000 animals. They're there for any animal in need 365 days a year, even longer in a leap year. Let's take a look at their story.
We started off originally in 1982 and we didn't have any premises, so we fostered in our own homes. And how we ended up here was one Christmas time. There was a dog with pups, and she was basically on the street, and we had no space at any foster home. So we appealed for a shed or someone to help us, and the gentleman who owned this land came forward and said we could use his shed. And so that's how we evolved, really. Now the trust own everything that's here. Animals come from all sorts of sources. Either people, like we're getting lockdown animals in now. We get animals from people that have died, gone into care homes. Whatever their need is, we try and give them that need. Like we've got one dog who has never really seen the outside world. He has been kept in a home all his life. He's never been on a lead, so we do it gradually. You know, this dog did come out of his kennel yesterday. I think he'll progress from there, he'll get more confidence. The volunteer situation has been very difficult over the COVID period because we had to stop all volunteers coming, really. So we're just building up on that, and we just started doing it on a very slow basis.
Well, obviously the dogs come here to be rehomed, and we're just a stopgap, really, to look after them and exercise them until they can find their forever homes. Some of the dogs don't stay very long, but some become long-termers, and you do get to know them. And it's just like coming here, and it's like meeting old friends sometimes. In fact, we've just rescued a dog from here, or adopted a dog from here who was rescued.
Well, I love all animals, but especially dogs. So it seemed a natural choice to come and volunteer at an animal rescue centre. We all have, I would say, the same mentality, is that we want to care for the animals, whether it's the dogs or the cats. We're friendly to one another. We're obviously kind to the animals, whichever branch we volunteer for. And it's just a joy to come.
People have just been amazingly generous. I truly thought when we went into the first lockdown, I thought we would really struggle, and I was really, really worried. But people have got us through, and we've just done so well, and we've come out of it in a good place, and once we can start fundraising again, that'll be even better. But we always need money because we're always going forward. Every legacy, every donation we get, we put it to improving the conditions of the animals. The facilities when I started were horrific, quite honestly horrific. We had no facilities, no heating, and we used to have to break the ice on the drinking bowls in the morning. So I think that gave us all a kick to start fundraising and getting better facilities. So we initially raised for the main block that we have over there, and we finished it in 1997. We built this building which doesn't appear to be for the animals, but we use it as an education room, and we also use it for introducing animals to new people so that they can get a feel for how a dog would be, or, well, the cats, we have a cat room over there.
Oh, hugely, hugely important. Especially now, I think they're going to be under a lot of pressure because of COVID and lockdown. So many people have got dogs, and I don't think that they know what they've taken on. So I'm sure at the end of all these lockdowns, it's going to be a huge amount of dogs that are going to be looking to be rehomed. Well, I thought it was very, very, very clean, very nice, and the staff was certainly very, very friendly. In fact, they rung me up a couple of times to ask how the dog's getting along, which is really, really nice.
I realised after doing this work about 20 years, it can take you down because it is very emotional, and some of the cases that we've had over the years have been horrific. Yeah, you have to really stick with the positive. I believe that any animal under our roof will have the treatment I would give my own animals. All the animals that we take in are guaranteed a lifetime of care. That's how I see us progressing more and more to just enhance the animals that are with us in the time they're with us.
Here we are, this is the Business Day coming to you live from the Bridlington Spa, and I've got three senior business people, and they are senior, they're leaders of the pack. It's Tim Ricks, Managing Director of J.R. Ricks & Sons, Dominic Gibbons, Managing Director of Whiteland Group, and Diana Taylor, Managing Director of Marketing Humber. And the guys seem to think it's Dress Down Friday. Just because the people are watching in pyjamas doesn't mean to say you should be. People are much less formal nowadays, aren't they?
Well, we've been instructed that this is how we should turn up, Giles, for you. So
really?
We're very surprised to see you looking so smart.
Well, I've felt I owed it to Bridlington. It's the least I could do. But people don't wear nowadays, do they? I mean, business suits. Do people wear business suits? Yes. Do they wear ties?
Business suits, bit of ties. It's the first time I've ever seen Tim in a pair of jeans, so it's quite...
yeah.
Well, following the instructions to the letter.
Could have had my shorts on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sparing us.
I think that's because I'm here. He didn't, so we have to be thankful, yeah.
Well done, Diana. Can I say you look the business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, all three of you, for being here. Let's begin with you, Tim. And before we actually talk to you, you brought a short video, so that'll going to introduce you. Here's the video. Big, bold, transformational. That's you, Tim. Tell us who you are and then what that's all about.
Okay, well, I run a family business in Hull, which is J.R. Ricks & Sons Limited, and we've been around for 5 generations. But this project, the Lagoon, is all about what Hull needs from a placemaking point of view moving forwards for the next 100 years. It deals with all the issues that the city faces, such as flooding, such as a southern relief road, a good place for people to live. You know, we need to attract young professional people to come and work in the city. And also, with everything that's going on with the renewables industry out there in the North Sea, we are creating with this project an outer harbour which would enable us to have the infrastructure to deal with anything that's required out there in the North Sea to service that particular industry.
You do so much. You wear so many hats. Which hat are you wearing with this?
I'm wearing my Lagoon Hull hat, which is chairman of Lagoon Hull, which is a not-for-profit organisation supported by many businesses in the city who have put money towards this project over the last 5 years. We've raised around about £500,000. I think it's pretty unusual, actually, that the private sector have come together to put a programme or put a project together for the public sector, effectively to try and transform the city over the next 25 years to deal with all its demons, deal with all its issues and problems.
I remember during the Hull City of Culture, I was sent up by the One Show to visit Hull almost every fortnight. I mean, I went more to Hull in 1 year, and I haven't been asked to go there since. But you have this thing called the Cultural Compact that you're involved in?
Yeah,
Is that anything to do? Is that a springing from?
That is something completely different from the Lagoon project. But I think what the City of Culture did for the city was it made the people of the city believe in themselves, and I think that was something that Hull absolutely required. And this project really grew out of that belief. And I think what's important is that we put this project out there and we get the people of the city behind it, because the politicians will only listen to when things are driven by the population, and I think it would make a massive economic difference to the area if we could get this project off the ground.
So the Hull Lagoon at the moment is a video. It's you and a video. And how much money have you raised so far?
We've raised £500,000 from local businesses. There's been a lot of modelling done, because one of the things that I didn't want to do was to build something in the river and then discover that it was impossible for it to actually work. So we do know from the high-level modelling that we've done with ABP Mayor, with the Environment Agency and with the University of Hull, that if we built this, it will work, the river will still continue to operate.
Because the challenge of these things is to sustain it and make it happen. I remember in London a few years ago, there was a thing for a garden bridge. Everyone loved the video. They raised X million for the get it going, but then they couldn't get the rest of the money together, and so the project collapsed. How do you ensure that with your $500,000, your energy, this video, you translate it into reality? What's the minimum it's going to cost? Who's going to fund it to actually make it happen?
Well, we've costed this, and the cost is about £1.5 billion. And when you look at that in the scope of what that's going to do to the economy, and you look at what the government's spending on HS2, we believe for this area that will be money extremely well spent. Because one of the things it does is it makes sure that Hull doesn't flood for the next 100 years. And after London, Hull is the most likely place in the UK to suffer from catastrophic flooding, which will be extremely terrible for everybody. But it's not just about that. It does other things. It creates a southern relief road, which effectively, according to modelling by the Highways Agency, reduces all the traffic on all the other roads in Hull, which is something which is incredibly topical at the moment because of the traffic congestion that the city's suffering from. But Gyles, it's more than that. It's about placemaking. It's about making a city that young professional people want to come and live and work in, because we have an ageing population at the moment. Those of us who run businesses in the city realise how important it is to get young people to want to come and live in an area.
People watching this, we've got hundreds of business people in this part of the world watching it. What do they do? What's the call to action?
Well, the call to action is to absolutely get behind and support Lagoon Hull, the project.
And in a practical way, what do they do? How do they get their business to do something?
Well, I always like people to pay a subscription of £5,000 a year because we obviously have to run the business. And I ask that from everybody because it's a relatively modest amount of money for what we achieve. And, we have a project director who is an engineer who understands the river like the back of his hand. He helped deliver the Siemens project. And so we have to sustain that, and it's important to make sure we get our message across to everybody. So there's a lot of marketing material that we have to get across as well, which is what the money's
And in your
spent on.
model, when does this lagoon become real? How many years
If
from now?
somebody said to me, you can go ahead, I think it would take 10 years.
Fine.
You need to get the approvals in place, for which we would need about £25 million to get all the consenting in place. And then it would take about 5 years to build it. And that's from someone like Bam Nuttall, who is a civil engineering company who's priced it, who knows what's involved in these things.
You're not short on ambition. Are you? Is your business okay? Because my worry about this guy is that he's got so many hats that he wears. I'm going to talk about just one other in a moment. That his core business, I hope, is either being run by a brilliant son of his, the next J.R. Ricks, or is somehow so successful that it doesn't need your full-time attention. How is that going?
Well, like most people who are successful, I surround myself with people who are much cleverer and better than I am, Giles. And I have a team of people who run the business along with me, and it allows it to be successful. And that allows me to spend time looking at what we might be able to do for the city, having had a family business in it for 5 generations and now 6 generations. It's important that we give back. But I like to think that we run our business in a way where we look forwards and we see what we want to do in the future. And so I've really applied that to what I would do if the city of Hull was mine, and what I would do to it to try and make it a better place for everybody that lives there.
Good. Okay, I'm going to come back to you on that cultural compact. I know it's a different subject, but we must come back to it. Let me bring in now Dominic, because tell me, you're the cultural compact man, really, aren't you?
Yes.
Tell me, Dominic, have you got a video too?
I think there is.
Okay, Dominic Gibbons from the Whiteland Group, he's got a video. Let's see that. Let's introduce you with that.
A bit quirky, a bit different.
I want it to be unique.
And yeah, just celebrating that individuality of different businesses, definitely.
Somewhere that you'd want to live, but you'd want to work there as well and spend your weekends there.
I want it to be chilled out. I want it to be quite relaxed.
You know, it's got a rawness to it.
A bit more risk-taking.
Whole people running businesses.
Mavericks and innovators and just creative types. Quirky things that you don't normally see.
I like the sort of the art vibe that's happening.
Vibrant, you know, it just needs to be kind of a vibrant atmosphere.
Opportunities for local, maybe designers, clothes, boutiques.
Like an area where it's full of great art and great people and great culture.
Embracing what was here before.
And it's cool, it's just something different, isn't it, you know?
A place to hang out.
I think it's people who've really taken a chance, the spirit that's there, and they're going to be part of a creative community. Craft beers or interesting drinks or great cocktails.
I like it when it's sort of more personal.
Relaxed and laid back.
And there'll be cuisines of every culture.
It's like a village, but it's part of the city, but then it's on the waterfront as well.
Cafes and bars, friendly and warm.
Gigs and comedy and all that kind of thing.
I can be here and something will happen.
We've got all of this now in Hull.
Here we are. We're back. Live, work, play. And Dominic, you are the cultural compact man. Tim is the cultural compact enthusiast, but he's busy creating his lagoon. You are busy creating this cultural compact. What is that? What is all this about?
The Cultural Compact is a Hull and East Yorkshire Cultural Compact. I've just taken on the chair role of that, and it's aimed funding from British Council, a bit of funding from the Arts Council. The councils in Hull and East Yorkshire are putting some small bit of funding into it to get it moving. But it's aimed at how do we create a cultural environment, which culture is so important now to the economy, from health and well-being, from attracting the right staff for corporate business in the city, retaining people in the city, attracting people to university, retaining graduates once they've completed their process. But the whole cultural fabric of the economy and this region and any region around the country, there's huge sums of money being pumped into major cities on cultural assets, whether they're physical assets or whether they're supporting very small grassroots, either organisations or individuals. But people nowadays, they want far more from their spare time. You know, the cultural, when we were our younger generations, it was the pub and the nightclub. You know, that was what you get out of it, but they want far more from it now. So to make your city young and vibrant, to deliver something where Tim's talking about his lagoon, is a modern future city, but it's about the people.
Give me for example of how this is translated into reality. You take a grim high street with a lot of retail now closed down or turned into charity shops, some boarded up. What are you going to do? How's it going to happen?
With the Cultural Compact on one side and ourselves as a business as Whiteland, we're a property regeneration company. We've got various assets out in the retail environment. The retail environment, the high street is changing. It was changing before the pandemic massively. Once the logistics and online retailers got their logistics sorted, you can next day delivery, sometimes same day delivery. There was always going to be a real challenge for the high street and how it reinvented itself. The pandemic has speeded all that process up completely. So the high street the future will be about events. It will be about independent retailers. It's about getting the right rental levels down streets, which is sometimes difficult for us as a property company to understand, but we take a long-term view of all the investments we're making. So you're investing in the high street for the long term. The public and private sector will come together to work together in a different format to make that more achievable.
Are you with me in that I think we should have in the high street, it's a place for housing too?
Absolutely, yeah.
First-time housing, flats, so it becomes a much more mixed economy. So it's not just the traditional shop, it's everything. It's the cafe, it's the small theatre, it's the cinema, it's bingo, it's also a block of flats.
It's about making a place people want to live, they want to work, they want to have their social time as well in one environment, which city centres can do.
And what does that need? Change in the planning? How do we turn this, the challenge for me is I see a lot of wonderful videos like these, and you think, well, it's a lovely idea, and you talk the talk, but what's going to happen to turn the key, to open the door, to make this a reality?
Well, the video shot there was a fruit market in the centre of Hull. That is happened, it's happening.
Great.
We've built 110 houses around there, and flats. There's a new street where all the properties have been refurbished. It was a fruit market for 100 years, and then it went into decline, and it was a desolate area. There's a dry dock which was full of mud. It was a listed dry dock. That's now got an amphitheatre on there. John Godber's doing a play this Moby Dick this week and last week. So this is coming back round, and a lot of everything you saw in the video is real. But there are other areas of this city and other towns in the Yorkshire region where the change needs to happen. And it is happening. The councils we speak to, they are aware of what needs to happen, but a lot of these things can't happen overnight.
And this is another pro bono thing. You're doing this because you love...
The Cultural Compact is a pro bono process, which is to do with the culture. Obviously, the development like that is a commercial operation.
But I mean, you're another of these guys, like Tim. I mean, a whole list of things that you do. You chair a charity called Run With It. You're a trustee of the Hull Minster Development Fund. You're a governor of Hymers College, a director of C4DI. I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's Centre for Digital Innovation. It's a co-working space for digital tech businesses.
Look, is Wycland doing so well that they can afford to let you off to do all this good work?
Well, it's the same as Tim. I mean, we're not as an older business as Tim's, which is probably about 150 years old, but we're a 50-year-old business. It's a family-owned business. I'm not family. It's management run. But I have an exceptionally good team of other directors and staff who will allow the business to run and allow me time to put into these things, which is exactly what Tim was saying earlier. You want to put back in. We want our city and region to grow.
I mean, I was talking earlier about the Duke of Edinburgh. You exemplify exactly what he was about, actually doing a whole range of things with passion, focusing on them when you're doing them, and then moving on to something else. And he taught me that actually, if you've got the energy and the interest, you can achieve a great deal over a wide range of things. When you're doing any individual project, don't dabble, focus. But actually, you can keep...
It's been focused on them, and I mean, it's Tim's, he's persuaded me to put money into the lagoon because of his sheer passion.
You're one of the £5,000 members.
Yeah.
And some.
Yeah.
Well done you.
I get a couple of pints a year from him for that, I think. But no, it is. I mean, you get behind other people in the city who have passion like Tim.
Well,
and that's absolutely where we.
If you can transform the high street, and you talk about being transformational, you could change the country, because if you become a role model for how this can be done, it will be amazing. Because the problem that you speak of is everywhere, isn't it?
It is. I mean, the homogeneous high street, everybody should complain about. Actually, independents coming into the high street now are replacing some of those bigger places. And they're entrepreneurs. That you're trying to create a platform for many small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to take up spaces on what would have been the traditional high street that they could never get into because of the rates would be too high, the rents would be too high, etc. But there's a different model coming forward, and we want to be and are so hopefully at the forefront of that.
And are government listening to you and sympathetically?
The government, they need to listen to how the business rates on the high street are going to. They are out of kilter. It will make it makes it very, very difficult for smaller retailers or restaurateurs to get onto the high street. But that's something that for the last 15 months they haven't had to pay the business rate. So it's been very good during the pandemic. But as we come out of that pandemic, that will be a challenge, and we need government to listen to how they treat business rates.
Good. Well, hopefully ministers are watching this very moment. Diana, you're Managing Director of Marketing Humber. How do you market Humber, and what are you marketing?
All sorts of amazing things at the minute, and this is probably the best time to be marketing the Humber, because I think there's a whole storm brewing. We are a not-for-profit business organisation, and all of our members, both private and public sector, we call our bondholders. Tim and Dominic are two of my key bondholders. So I rely on hundreds of my businesses around the region to share their compelling stories with me, their compelling investment stories, regeneration stories. You've heard two ambitious, one for future and one that's happening right now that is transforming the region. So my job and my team's job is to collate all of those messages, make sure we're liaising, of course, with the local authorities, the LEPs, great organisations like CBI, Northern Powerhouse, Make UK, bring them all together and go and sell that on the national and international stage and make as much noise as we possibly can.
And are you optimistic?
Very optimistic, yes. I mean, you had it in a nutshell there, actually, with Dominic. We've got the opportunity here to show how regeneration on the high street can happen, but actually we can do that across the board. So we can do that in terms of carbon capture, in terms of bringing in new renewable energies, in terms of food processing, digital innovation. We have got an absolute hotspot here in the Humber. So yes, I'm incredibly optimistic about it. It's going to be hard work, but I'm optimistic.
Bear in mind that this is being filmed 10 years from now. How do you picture the Humber?
10 years from now, we will have some huge collaborations going on so that we can reach carbon neutral. We'll have done that by 2030 is our target, so we're going to have to get there. And it's not going to be an easy journey. So there's an awful lot of knowledge sharing, expertise, new technology and innovation that's going to be needed. But I truly think that we will achieve it, but that's only part of the journey. So I'm well aware that we're going to need some very big, ambitious plans to go forward and long-term plans as well. And that's where we need to project. So 10 years, yes, we've got a platform to reach, but that's part of a much longer journey.
And have you got all your bondholders, as you call them, tied up?
Tied up?
Well, no. I mean, have you got all the ones you need? I mean, here they are. There may be people watching who want to join you.
Not nearly, no.
No, good.
We need as many people to come on this journey and this transition with us to really make all of the opportunities come to life and really connect them all. So we're looking for everybody to join the journey.
And how do they get hold of you if they want to market, they want you to help them market their bit of the Humber?
They can get hold of me directly via email, LinkedIn, my website, any of my team as well. We're pretty hard to miss when you get out there. So.
Good, excellent. So finally, gentlemen, what is your message and your request to, we've got the cream of the business community in this part of the world tuned in, and I tried to wake up a friend of mine who's a minister who's partly responsible for this part of the world, and I said, come on, Dozy. He said, oh, it's the G7. I said, why the G7? I said, I think Boris is only down there because he got it confused with the G-spot. Never mind that. This is where we're actually doing something practically instead of just talking about it. What do you feel, Dominic? What do you want people watching to do?
I think be positive. You know, the way the economy is at the moment, we are, in a sense, bouncing back. And we've taken the attitude for the last year that this pandemic will finish at some point, and there is an economy, there is a world after the pandemic, and let's be very, very positive and make sensible steps to move forward and invest. We've continued to invest, you know, through that pandemic period. But I just, basic message, be positive, and if we're positive as a region, then it knocks on to everybody else in the region, and it'll make a huge difference as we go into the future. Fascinating.
And you, Tim, I just wanted to share very briefly, as we nearly hit high noon here, that you really surprised me. Your caravan business, you have a range of businesses, I know. It's one of the reasons you've been able to survive this past year. Some have gone up, some have gone down, but overall, you've kept going. Just tell me what you were telling me about caravans.
Well, about 98% of all the caravans that are built in the UK are built in this area. And of course, at the beginning of the pandemic, things are very difficult because all the factories closed down. But then, as a result of the staycation, people staying in the UK, the industry has gone absolutely mad. And now is booming and struggling, actually, to get hold of the materials that are required to build the caravans. So it's a very interesting dynamic as far as that's concerned. You know, I've got a lot of hope for this area. I think that we've come a long way in the last 10 years, and I think there's a lot more belief now, never mind in just caravan manufacture, but generally, you know, City of Culture, we've seen Siemens arrive with a factory that they're now going to double in size. They were so successful coming to Hull and building that factory for blades. They've gone and built a train factory in Goole just down the road. You know, all these things, if you'd said that was going to happen 10 years ago, nobody in this area would have believed it. So I think the thing that everybody takes away from this is there is belief now. Things do change. Things do get better. You know, we've moved on from the decimation of the fishing industry, and there is a bright future for the Humber if we all work together.
Yay. Fantastic. I'm not just fizzing with Pfizer, having had my 2 jabs. I'm now bubbling with Bridlington. I mean, I think it is very, very exciting, and I can see clearly what you're trying to achieve with this cultural compact in the high street. I think that's thrilling, and it's happening now. And your lagoon is so ambitious, but without ambition, what would happen anyway? And nobody knows what the future holds. I'd have said 5 years ago, caravans, forget it, it's yesterday's news. And there you are, you can't build enough of them. So, Humber heroine, brilliant people from this part of the world, thank you all very much.
Can I just...
Yeah, of course.
Since I didn't have a film, can I have a second ask of everybody who's watching?
Yes, you can have a
Is that
second
okay?
ask.
Thank you. And that is because, bondholder or not, we've got together with the university to create the campaign, the Waterline campaign, and this is for the whole region to get involved in. So this is bringing academia, businesses, communities, the next generation together. And the Waterline campaign this year aligns with COP26. And this is our opportunity, and these 2 gentlemen know it, to really get the Humber on the global stage, because we have leading technology and leading knowledge. So I'd encourage everybody to get involved with the Waterline Summit, which is taking place in November, and there are some big announcements coming out. So engage, get involved, and come and be part of it. Thank you.
Great. Engage, get involved, be part of it. An hour to go only here at the Business Day, coming to you live from Bridlington. And next up, we're going to find out about Bishop Burton College and University Centre. From agriculture and equine to sport and design, Bishop Burton offer a wide range of college-level courses, apprenticeships, short courses, and also higher educational programs. But first, here's a short message from a young entrepreneur, Caroline McCartney of Chiropody and Foot Health.
My name is Caroline McCartney. I'm the business owner and director of Chiropody and Foot Health. We are what they call a multidisciplinary practice. So not only is there myself doing the feet, and I have 2 other ladies that do feet for me, we also have a physiotherapist, a counselling, acupuncture, audiologist. So we all work together under one hub. So for the first 2 months of lockdown, when we was only seeing emergency, we were going from seeing, myself personally, from seeing about 80 to 90 clients a week to seeing about half a dozen. So that had a huge impact on the business. In the last year, we have had a few sleepless nights and some worries. It has given us time to reflect back on as well and see what we have been able to improve, what we need to change. In December this year, we took quite a big risk really, and opened a second clinic up in Barton, where I've now got two clinic rooms running from there as well. Very lucky that it has built up, and it's built up even better. One of the bonuses that has come out of it, as a team, all of us, the staff here, we've all learned to work a lot more together as well. So that's been a positivity.
Our focus at Bishop Burton is on technical education. Our land-based specialisms include agriculture, horticulture, equine, animal management, countryside management, but we've also over the years moved into non-land-based areas such as sport, public services, childcare and many more. The challenge for the college is to make sure that our students develop the necessary technical skills to be able to farm more efficiently and productively, whilst at the same time improving the environment. One of the key areas we're focusing on is precision agriculture. So with this system, farmers use GPS and other digital technologies to actually input fertilisers, pesticides and seeds much more accurately than they did previously. The agriculture industry has an important role to play in tackling the climate crisis, and it can do that by locking up carbon in its basic raw material, that's the soil. Through the use of the latest technologies and regenerative farming practices, we intend to become net carbon zero by 2030, and that's 10 years ahead of the NFU target.
We have been working closely with Bishop Burton College for a number of years, both in the education and training sphere and in the provision of precision farming technology. The agri-tech industry in the UK faces an unprecedented number of challenges. We face economic and sustainability challenges in agriculture, which I think it's commonly recognised now can only be addressed through the widespread use of advanced technology. We're going to see a really big move into the use of data in order to do processing of the large amounts of data we can gather from these small machines in order to make decisions in real time as to how we treat every small area of land differently. Agriculture is still a people business, and in order to exploit these machines and this technology to its full, it requires people with new skill sets. At Manterra, we've been absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to work with Bishop Burton College to bring forward the integration of new technologies and the educational sphere and the training sphere, because without the people that Bishop Burton bring through of all age groups, we cannot go on developing the technology and taking it out into the workplace.
The college farm has made big step forwards in embracing new digital technology within the last couple of years. And the reason why we're doing this is because the college has committed very publicly to a policy of net carbon zero by 2030, and we're using this along with a very wide range of other technologies to enable us to be able to achieve the benefits of that. I think the next few years are going to be a particularly exciting time in UK agriculture. There's a ever-expanding growth of newer and more exciting technology that's going to help the industry to be more competitive on a global scale. But also it's going to mean that some of the jobs I did when I was a young man of spending hundreds of hours trogging up and down fields on a tractor, that's coming to an end. That's going to be replaced by technology. Hopefully what the future will bring is the ability, through adopting precision technologies, to be able to bring about a reversal of climate change, lowering of global levels of CO2, through managing the soil better, and that's something that all of society needs to see.
One of the biggest challenges that we face in land-based technology is to train students with the breadth of skills that they need to be able to work on the range of equipment which is being used in modern day agriculture. The equipment that we're using on modern farms today is replicated here at college, and that gives us a big plus point when it comes to teaching these students. And the only way we can do that is by funding through the IoT, which gives us the ability to invest in this technology ourselves. Here at Bishop we have an amazing workshop with welding fabrication facilities, We've got masses of machinery that we can work on with more of some of the traditional systems on board, and we also have some of the most up-to-date technology that is used commonplace throughout agriculture in the UK at the moment. We're really able to offer a truly comprehensive education here, and much of which is thanks to the investment that we've been able to put into the facilities that we have here. Employers that we work with are keen to recruit students that have been to Bishop Burton College because they know that they'll have had a good practical background, and with this investment that we see around us, they'll appreciate they're far more industry ready.
I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the college's use of digital technologies to improve farming efficiency and productivity and to reduce carbon emissions. I'm hugely grateful to our employer partners for helping us to achieve our vision and make it a reality. It's obviously a complex field which requires high level technical skills, but also it requires a desire to make agriculture a part of the solution to climate change as well as a contributor.
Still to come in the next half hour, I'm going to be joined here on the sofa, live at the Bridlington Spa, by our final trio of sofa speakers. Gyles Brandreth, shopkeeper from Bradford, Sally Iggulden from Beverley Racecourse, and Thomas Martin, back this time with his Arco hat on. But first, we've got two further messages from young entrepreneurs in the region. Chris Harrison from Shoot the Bull and Chris Terry from Modern Draper. And we've also got an in-depth look at the work of Humber Rescue, an independent charity supplying fast response search and rescue operations on the Humber estuary. They cover approximately 540 square miles of water, including the River Hull, Trent Ouse, and the River Humber. Take a look at this.
Chris Harrison, the founder and MD at Shoot the Bull. Started out as an events company, and the idea was taking the restaurant to the street. Then we kind of went full circle and we bought our first pub, the Old House in Hull. And then we've grown and we took on the Solita brand, and now we have 9, soon to be 10 venues. Mentally and kind of emotionally, it's been a difficult year, and I think we're grateful for the support that has been there from the government and to protect the business and employees. So the use of the furlough scheme and the grants have kind of given us the opportunity to take some further risks in business and to expand, because the opportunities are out there. In this lockdown, we were opening with 3 more than we closed with, and that's simply from taking national operator sites that have closed and negotiating good solid deals that will give this business the platform to continue to grow. We can open stronger than we closed, and not only are we doing that, we're providing more and more employment in a difficult market. We had 90 people on furlough, and we're actually reopening now with 160 people on our payroll. We're having to invest to sustain the demand we've already created, which is quite exciting.
all started here in about 1989. Prior to that, I was running a Coast Guard team from the Humber Bridge area. The problem was we couldn't react to persons on the water. We could only deal with incidents from the shoreline. And I thought, well, it's time to get a lifeboat. We got the Hull Mail and the Radio Humber site to get an appeal going for us, called a Mayday appeal, and we got sufficient money to buy a lifeboat. We managed to acquire the boat, and I put it in the garden of my house, which is only a quarter of a mile from here, because we didn't have a lifeboat station. So when we got a call out, we used to have to tow it down to the foreshore here and launch it with a Land Rover, and we went from there. We wanted a lifeboat station to house it, so again we got some more money together, and we managed to get some prisoners from the nearby Everthorpe prison to help build the building, and that's how it really started.
I came to Humber Rescue when I retired 2015. Just walking by with my grandson, saw the doors open, and of course the grandson wanted to come in and have a look at the boats. Realised one of my former colleagues were here, told him I'd retired, so he said, oh, come down and join us. Came down, did all the training, and that was it.
It makes me feel very proud that I'm helping others. Got family members that have tried to commit suicide pretty recently, and it was off a bridge, so I wanted to give something back to the families of those individuals that do the same kind of thing, really.
The commitment that I personally put in is, I think, is quite a lot. It has obviously suffered in my personal life. I miss parts of my kids growing up because I'm here, been out on the boat. I've been down here on call-outs. I think the longest call-out that we've had on the boat has been 19 hours continuous. I've gone, when we had the floods in 2013, I think I did 48 hours straight, along with a few of the other crew. It does affect the whole family, not just the individual. So it's not just an individual commitment, it's a family commitment.
Since joining Humber Rescue, I've been involved in quite a lot of incidents and with some lives saved.
A few years ago, I went with two other crew members, and we went to a lady that had fallen in the water, a young lady. She'd been in the water approximately 15 minutes, and she had dislocated her shoulder. When we got to her, she did what all casualties tend to do when you get there, is to give up. She was splashing around in the water. When she saw us, the big orange boat turns up, she just gave up, and she actually went under the water, which case I had to jump in the water and I had to hold her up, keep her head up out of the water until we could get her recovered back into the boat. She survived. And about a year later, I had a young lady came down, asked my name, and it was her sister, and she'd actually come down to thank me for saving her sister. And then she got on, she got herself sorted out, and got on with her life again.
Oh, I'm very proud of it all. As I said, I'm not on the front line anymore, but I still keep an eye on it, and I just really am proud of all the crew and what we've all achieved over the last 30 years. It's a feeling that you get that you've done something that's really well worth it, and once you've done that, nothing else in the world matters. And I think it's that keeps the guys going.
There's nothing quite like it. You've really got a sense of achievement.
It's rewarding. It makes up for the not so great times when you're freezing cold.
There's no feeling like it, really. It's a really good thing. It's very hard to explain or put into words.
It's just a great feeling to know that you've helped somebody.
When you save that life, there's no words to describe that feeling.
To have business support, especially from the Humber region, it's just our lifeline. We can't operate without people's support.
It really makes us as volunteers believe that they believe in the values we stand for and really believe in Humber Rescue.
Every penny counts. We don't run without everyone's support.
Although they're not involved with actually going out in the boat, they are forming part of the crew and can think themselves that once those pages go off, they're actually joining the boat by giving us a donation.
I'm Chris Terry. I'm the owner of the Modern Draper, which is a contemporary fashion business based in Beverley in East Yorkshire. First and foremost, we're a contemporary fashion business, and we started off with the one store, which you see here behind me, which has quickly grown to 2 stores and a third premises from which we operate our online e-commerce business. It's been, like most businesses, it's been a case of weathering the storm and sort of surviving what has been undeniably a very difficult period. As well as COVID, we had the added problems of Brexit, so we've had quite a few challenges in terms of shipping and both getting our kind of goods in and also, you know, goods out to customers, especially overseas. It's really sort of faced us to really focus on our website and develop it, put in new functionality. Things like click and collect have become much more relevant. I suppose things like free local delivery, that was a really important thing for us as well, really. You know, a wise man once said, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think that has been true for us in this case. I think we've learnt to adapt, and I think you know, the only real viable way of working is to have a true multi-channel business. So yeah, not just through our customers via our website, but also through other channels as well. It's great now that we've got the stores open again, and we've come back very strongly, and well, we're trading really well now, I'm pleased to say. So.
This is the Business Day, coming to you live from the Bridlington Spa, and still to come in this, our final hour. We're going to be joined by our last group of sofa speakers. We're going to hear from our nominated charity, Hull for Heroes, and I'm going to be chatting live to our keynote speaker, Horsemaster Mark Atkinson. So please don't go anywhere. I'm safe because I've had both my jabs. I just want you to know that. We're doing this under strict COVID rules. The speakers, as they arrive, they're all masked. They only take off their masks when they sit down. We're 2 meters apart. But I am so lucky because I've had my 2 jabs, and this is my mug. You don't need a vaccine passport. You just need one of these mugs. I designed it for my wife. She wanted a souvenir. So I put it on sale in my own online shop, and only those who've had both doses of vaccine are permitted to drink from this mug, officially signed Gyles Brandreth. There we are. So that's my mug. And it says, I'm no mug, I've had my 2 jabs. And I'm assuming that at least some of our guests have had. Jazz Atswal, you're here. Have you had both jabs?
I have, Giles, yes,
well done.
I've had both.
And you're a shopkeeper?
I'm a shopkeeper from Bradford, or I was.
Okay, well, we're going to hear your story. You're not alone here. We've also got with us today, Thomas is back. That's Thomas Martin, chairman of ARCO. And completing our trio, it's Sally Iggulden. I'm pronouncing it correctly?
That's absolutely
What is the
perfect
origin of Iggulden?
pronunciation.
Iggulden?
That's it, spot on.
But where does it come from?
God knows.
God knows. Well, you're in God's own country, so God knows. Nobody knows where your name comes from. How wonderfully relaxed. I'd have thought you spent your whole life trying to explain Iggleton to people, but no, God knows. I'm just called that. Well done. Let's start with you, Jazz. You came to the UK under fairly unusual circumstances, didn't you? Back a long time ago, back in the 60s. What is your story?
Well, I came in 1966 with my mum. Sadly, my dad passed when I was only 4, and we came from India, Punjab, and we came for the funeral. And from there, Mum worked extremely hard. I had my education here. Totally didn't have any qualifications. I still don't have any qualifications. And we worked hard, and we went into the shop retail business. My brothers and my mum and everybody worked extremely hard. And on the back of their hard work is where we are today. And it gives me an opportunity, somebody who's just a regular shopkeeper guy from Bradford, to come to Bridlington to talk to you, Gyles, and tell our story.
You're an unusual person, though, because you were very much into sport when you were young. I mean, looking at your biog, love of sport, rugby league in particular. What was it like playing in the 70s and 80s? I mean, there probably weren't many Asian lads playing rugby league at that time, were there? Or maybe I'm wrong.
I think back in the 70s, I think it was as rare as Lord Lucan riding Shergar around Beverley Racecourse, you know, and but there were never any Asian lads playing back in the 70s. But you know, it was the best time of my life. I used to have some really good fun and made some really good friends. And
how did you get into it?
It was just at school, Gyles. I remember about 10 years before I started playing rugby, it was in a school playground where we had a congregation of Asian kids stood together and white kids stood together. And a school teacher said to me that there was a football match on a Saturday morning, like they were back in the old days. And we played, and I said I didn't want to play, but the teacher insisted. And I played, and then Monday morning the two groups became one. Because the lads who were in the white English group came to join us and said, "Oh, Jazz, we've got a match on Wednesday. Do you want to play?" I said, "Oh, it was just a one-off." They said, "Oh, no, play." And then I found a great love of sport. And sport was a great leveller. Sport didn't recognise colour. And for me, that was a fantastic opportunity to make friends, enjoy my life at school, and just get into rugby league. And playing rugby league back in the 70s was quite challenging. But I remember when I was 18 going to play for this team where Rita Sue and Bob 2 was made in Bradford. And a guy called Kevin came up to me and he said, "Oh, you're a jazz singer." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You coming to play for us?" I said, "Yeah." And he reached out and he shook my hand. On his hand, he had a SWAT sticker and an NF tattooed on each arm. And it was I was taken back a bit, but he came one of my minders on the field. I was a scrum half in back in the day. And the love and affection that you grow with people, excuse me, from them days, it stays with you all the way through. And I saw Kevin a few years back, and he had them all lasered off and everything. But, you know, it goes on to, you know, friendships that last forever, really.
Wonderful story. And then you're now into golf, in a big way, in a serious way.
Well, I run the UK Asian Golf Tournament.
The UK Asian Golf Tournament, what's that?
Well, I became the first Sikh captain in 2000 in the UK. And just to mark that, we wanted to set a little golf day up, and it started off half a dozen people. And after about 3 or 4 years, it started ballooning into a proper event. And to mark that occasion, we got a lot of people involved. And so the monies we raised, we started putting into inner city schools and kids with learning difficulties, and we wanted to teach them golf. So we paid for a local professional to go into schools and deliver golf into inner city schools and give kids an opportunity and take that stigma away that golf is still a white middle class game that's unattainable to some of the kids in inner city schools in Bradford. I had a very interesting conversation with the R&A, who once said to me that they felt that it was a bit exclusive because we were doing just Asian kids in middle of Bradford. And I I was a bit shocked because I thought, well, that's right, they are all Asian kids, but inner city Bradford is full of Asian kids and inner city schools. We didn't go into schools and just say we wanted Asian kids. We wanted to teach golf into kids from inner city schools. The byproduct of that was they were all Asian. But I said to the guy from the R&A, next time you're up at St Andrews, have a look around your table and see what your diversity looks like. And tell me then what exclusivity is all about.
So diversity is now something you are hot on. You're on a number of boards. I mean, as I suppose the diversity representative, is that valuable? Is it tokenism? What's the difference you're making?
Well, I hope I'm adding value to the boards. I don't do anything just as a tick box exercise these days. God's given me enough to, walk away from certain things.
Yeah.
But sometimes, back in the day, sad as it may be, you were okay when somebody called you a packy or a wog. You knew what you were saying. You understood where you stood. Now, sometimes your chief exec or your chairman can be a bit sly and they haven't got a backbone and they pretend to be your friends, but they're not really. So, but 99% of the boards I'm on are all voluntary. But I hope I bring a bit of a shopkeeper's perspective to a board level.
Yeah. So in fact, what you're bringing is you, a shopkeeper's experience, your personality, what you know. You're not being, as it were, rent-a-nation. You're being, I'm here, I'm Jazz, I've done things. If I can help, I will. Is that the idea?
Absolutely. I'm not anybody's tick box, and I will not join any board where I will not add. It's just like in sport. I put it back to sport. If I don't want to be in a team just to say, well, we need it. The problem with inclusion, diversity, and belonging, you can only quantify one of those, which is diversity, because sat in a boardroom or in a company environment, you can count diversity. You can see how many Asians or black people are in the company, so that's accountable. But inclusion and belonging are subjective, because you can be in a group but not part of something, and that's where you try to have your challenges. And to me, I think I'm not here a pallbearer for everybody's problem. If somebody asks me a question, I give them an honest answer, Gyles, and that's how it is. And if I can add value to people, to the boards, whatever, or anything really, and I can speak to kids and talk about the experiences we've had from way back in the day, I go out my way to help.
As a shopkeeper, what's the lesson you've learned from this last year?
Be thankful for what you've got. Be thankful for what you've got, and be grateful. Because in this world, all I see is there's some extremely wealthy people and there's some really good things. But life only boils down to one thing for me. If your wife thinks you're a good man and your kids think you're a good dad and your mum thinks you're a good son, you've had the most successful life you've ever going to have. You can have all the money in the world, but if everybody thinks you're a prat, then it's not really that successful. You know what I mean? So,
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
I like that. A brilliant assessment.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas, you're going to find it hard to beat that. You're here now wearing your hat as chairman of ARCO rather than wearing your for entrepreneurs only hat. Tell us about ARCO.
It's a fabulous family business, fifth generation now. Now my daughter's joined. We've been going for nearly 140 years.
Wow.
And we've reinvented ourselves a number of times, because you started off making tennis balls for the then little-known Wimbledon tournament. So one of our latest incarnations was getting into safety. We now head the UK in terms of safety.
What does that mean, safety?
That's safety products.
Oh, I thought it was contraception.
No. This is where the real protection is, where contraception, you get it wrong, you create life. Safety, you get it wrong, you kill somebody. Think of it that way. Is that a fair delineation?
Can I say you are so quick? I am deeply impressed by that answer. So, in a nutshell, what does ARCO do? What are you selling? What's the practical thing you're offering?
So we basically keep people alive. You want to go and do something, there's a whole load of rules and regulations and people telling you can't do stuff. Actually, you can do stuff. And if you use the right gear and you have the right advice and the right training, you can go and do everything you wanted to go and do for your business, for your work, for your job, and you'll go home with your fingers and toes attached. And it's a fundamental human right to be able to go home. So that's actually what we do. And I'm very proud of that.
And is it a growth area? It's a business that is growing and has potential?
It's very much a growth area, because despite the fact we live in a highly regulated society, there are still sort of tens of people, up to 50 people a year being killed in industrial accidents.
Gosh.
And you won't necessarily hear about that.
Wow.
So there is work to do in the UK, but there's also work to do in terms of pioneering. So we've got our team of experts sitting on standards bodies, making sure the rules are fit for purpose going forward. You can imagine how busy it was in the last 14, 15 months over COVID, and we were heavily involved in the response to support the UK's key workers from March last year. And in fact, only 10 days ago, I was giving evidence for the Public Accounts Committee as to what went wrong and what needed to be done better for the UK to prepare for the next zoonotic event. So I'm able to draw on a load of expertise throughout the company, and I'm very proud to be able to do so. We try and make a difference.
You're like a lot of the people we've been talking to this morning. You wear a variety of hats, and it seems to be, you know, if you want something done, ask a busy person. And you are a very busy person. One of your latest projects is you're now chair of the Hull and East Riding Business Engagement Board. What does that do?
That's a new board that was set up last summer, and I suppose our initial move was to try and encourage a bit of speed dating, to try to speed dating in between the councils, the local authorities, who were not too sure of how to reach out to business, wanted some help in terms of trying to shape the local agenda. So we encouraged the two councils to get together, that's the Hull City Council and the East Riding of Yorkshire Council, brokered the relationships with the leaders. They have a good long-standing relationship, but we could then begin to shape what the political agenda could look like if they thought about the needs and requirements of business, not for now, but for the next 5 years. So what kind of skills will business need? So what does that mean for the educational sector? What does that mean for the colleges? What do we need to do to be able to retain, attract and develop the right talent in our area? Because if we're going to have this area which is making its own luck, and if we're going to try and grow prosperity and a levelling up agenda throughout the region, because our region is extremely unequal. We've got to have more prosperity that's shared more equally. We need to join together more. So I suppose my role has now morphed into supporting the LEP, the new Hay LEP that was formed only a few weeks ago. We've been appointed as the voice of the private sector, and that is making sure that we're asking the right questions of the local and national politicians, and actually we can get a bit bolshy and we can demand the right answers.
Do these things make a difference? I remember when I was in government and when I was an MP, I went to visit lots of organisations that were bringing people together and precursors of things like the local enterprise partnerships. And the talking was marvellous, but the delivery was more patchy. How do you ensure that this translates into differences in the street, the high street, in employment?
By putting your money where your mouth is. So we've put over £40 million into our local economy. We've created over 400 jobs in the last 3 years, where the consultant said, go to West Yorkshire, go to Pontefract. I'm sorry, we want to be backing our own region. And then we have a voice, we've earned the right to say things, and we say it. And I am equally unpopular on both sides of both houses in Westminster. I'm not frightened to say my piece. I like to think that working with a team of professionals, I'm well supported, and I know some of the sound bites to say, and I will make sure there is action. And if there isn't action, I've got form on poking people until we actually get a debate going. I won't waste my time otherwise. And if I can't make a difference, I'll say I'm not up to the job, and I will find someone better than me to take it on. And I've done that in the past as well. When I can't make a difference, always give it to someone else who can do what I can't do.
When I met you right at the beginning of the day, you were talking about for entrepreneurs only, because you're supporting today, and thank you very much for that. Why are you so passionate about that particular group?
Because it started from nothing 10 years ago, and it's a group of like-minded people, and I was involved from day one, which is, again, trying to chart a different course of opportunity for our region. And what we have achieved in the last 12 months, we've helped over 2,600 people, I beg your pardon, forgive me. 2,600 people and businesses have come to us for advice. We're led by a fabulous team in Jan Brumby, our CEO, who sees dots that none of us see, and she joins them up just brilliantly. And then, of course, we mobilise over 200 members and 6 key partners. So we've given over 7,000 hours of voluntary work to help businesses start, adapt and grow. And in terms of handing over to someone who's better than me, I handed over the Next Generation group, which is designed to build the entrepreneurs for the future. I handed it over to a lady, Angela Oldroyd, who is doing things that I could never even dream of. And it just shows that, you know, when you max out at your capability, find someone better than you to take it on. It's just the most amazing organisation, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
Well done. Completing our trio is Sally Iggulden, and from Beverley Racecourse. Let's check out the video we've got first before we talk to you. Well, wonderful. Jazz mentioned how sport is a great leveller, and I know I've heard the Queen say that the great thing about racing is that it is for everybody. Everybody can go to the races and share equally in the excitement of it all. Beverley Racecourse, you're the chief executive, but clearly you do more than just horses and races. What is the racecourse about nowadays?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, horse racing remains our core business. But we race 19 days each year, and obviously there's a lot of days when we don't race. And so diversifying the business is massive to us. And it's very important that it's not just about horse racing. I think, as the video explained, there's an awful lot more to being an entertainment venue. We host weddings, we host conferences, and we really are a centre for everything based on the edge of beautiful Beverley.
You may not know this, but the reason you can host weddings is thanks to me. When I was a Member of Parliament in the 1990s, I introduced something called the 1994 Marriage Act. Until then, civil weddings had to take place in a register office, often rather dreary public buildings. And in my constituency, there was somebody who owned a castle. I said, why can't we have a wedding in this castle? We've never had a cathedral, why not a castle? And so I introduced this legislation, the 1994 Marriage Act, that enabled weddings to take place in stately homes, castles, historic houses, theatres, this stage, racecourses like yours. And it went very well until my wife heard me one day being described on local radio as the expert on the Marriage Act. She literally fell off her bunk. So anyway, weddings. But of course, there hasn't been any weddings or any races this year. So how have you survived in the last 12 months?
Yeah, there hasn't. It's been a very different picture than the video showed for the past 12 months. And actually, ironically, it was a year ago today that we hosted our first behind closed doors race day, which has been interesting. So all of last year, all of our race meetings took place without a crowd. Functional. Got the job done, and it was very important actually that we did keep horse racing going.
Why?
Well, a lot of people said to me, you know, there's very important things going on in the world at the moment, and why is there a need to see which horse can run faster than the other? But the horse racing industry is massive, not only worldwide, but I mean for Yorkshire alone, it's a huge deal for Yorkshire, and you couldn't furlough the staff in horse racing. You know, horses need looking after 24/7. Staff can't be furloughed. The racecourse, you know, grass continues to grow. And so, you know, we've got venues and we've got a whole workforce that need to keep going. And from the kind of economic impact of horse racing in Yorkshire alone, there's 9 racecourses, only 1 in East Yorkshire, the Jewel in the Crown, obviously. But you know, £300 million in 2019 was put back into the economy from horse racing in Yorkshire alone.
Wow, how much?
300 million.
It's fantastic.
It's a big industry. You know, it's a big industry. In Yorkshire, 4,000 people are directly employed in horse racing. And so it was very important to keep this sport going. And I think not only just from an economic point of view, but to keep sport up and running was massively important for people. the viewing figures on television went through the roof when we started racing again. And I think it just showed how important it was to keep the spirit alive. People really wanted something to do. They wanted something to engage with. And having sport going and, horse racing, football, when football started back, I think people were delighted. It was a massive boost for people.
Good. Each of you, before we say goodbye to you, do you have a message for the business community? Apart from going to the races, what's yours? I mean, are you optimistic, Sally?
Well, it's very interesting, actually, because I think what the lockdown has brought to everyone is this sense of wanting to get out and experience new things. We've had an awful lot of people, since we've started racing again with the crowd, which has only been very recently, but so many people say to us, we've never been racing before, we want to come racing. But they want to experience it properly. Yeah. They want to upgrade, they want to have a really good day out, and they want to enjoy themselves. I think we've all missed enjoying ourselves. And so the outlook actually at the moment is very, very positive. It's very promising. All of our big days are fully booked, and people are desperate to come out and see, these new experiences they haven't had a chance to do before. And that's really heartening.
Good. Go to the races. That's your message. Enjoy. I like it. What's your message for the business community?
I would say if you want to grow and adapt your business, get in touch with Jan or April for Entrepreneurs Only. There's a whole lot of expertise available for you, and it's a members organisation, and we'll help you.
Wonderful.
Get on with it.
For Entrepreneurs Only, where do they find it?
They can find it at feo.com on the web.
Very good. And Jazz, what's your message?
Well, I don't really have a message for the business community, but I've just got a message from my own family. My message is really that I came into this country in 1966, and this country, for all its faults and all its good and bad, is probably the best country to be here in the world, because it gives you opportunity, it looks after you with the NHS. My wife is a sister at the Sheffield Children's Hospital, my daughter is a doctor, and this country has been so good to migrants like me, to give me a no-mark like me to come and sit on this stage and talk nonsense. But I just want to say what a great opportunity this country affords people who come here, and people should, when they arrive here, they should embrace what Great Britain stands for. That's why the great is in Great Britain.
No nonsense there. Powerful, moving stuff. And that's your message. I am now getting messages, because I was going to say don't go anywhere. Mark Atkinson is still to come. And in fact, I'm getting a message from my earpiece telling me that he is on his way to Bridlington, but he's not here yet. I think we can go live to see where he is, because this is coming to you live from the Bridlington Spa, and Mark Atkinson should be here. Where is he? See that? Oh my gosh. Oh my. He said he might do this. This is ridiculous. Oh, as Mark makes his way to the Bridlington Spa, our final video today is of the Business Day's official charity, Hull for Heroes. Oh, Mark. Oh. Yeah, well, that's extraordinary. I imagine, can I smell the horse? I don't know. I'm going to have to go and find out wherever he is. While I'm going to see if I can find Mark arriving on his steed, let's have our final video of the day. It's our official charity we're supporting, Hull for Heroes. I know these guys. What they're doing is quite remarkable. Watch this.
My name is Paul Matson. I'm the chairman and founder of Hull for Heroes. So I basically was a soldier. When I left the forces, I ended up homeless. Found myself running down a slippery slope and just couldn't cope with things, and felt like the big blanket that I'd had around me inside the forces had been taken away, and I was left on my own. Struggled, turned to drink, turned to drugs, and just fell in the gutter basically. So years on, got some help and became a builder myself, and ended up working on a programme called DIY SOS. This was on the Veteran Street in Manchester. All my life I thought I was the only person to ever fall down after coming out of the forces, but it turns out working on this programme I found lots and lots of people in the same predicament as myself, and came back to Hull and set up Hull for Heroes. I just sat at some traffic lights and saw a derelict house and thought, I'm a builder. Most of my mates were builders, and we could do something. If any of us could join together and renovate a house for a veteran, wouldn't that be great? And I posted something up on Facebook, and it went wild. And a week later, 10 people had joined together. None of us knew each other, and we were renovating a house for a veteran. It was an absolute whirlwind. And all of a sudden, a week later after that, we were renovating another house, and a charity started.
We help veterans in need and their families with, that transitional journey. So a veteran who might need help with housing, anybody who needs help with, benefit applications, but also anything from a point of view of just really someone to talk to and someone, to help out when they're in that hour of need.
Lots of people in this area need help. We're not the only agency, and we work with many, and we see that there is quite a big downfall. We don't come from the best part of the country monetarily, but we do come from the best part of the country for people helping people.
Basically, the Veterans Village, it's a 20-acre site which will provide training support and housing for veterans and their families. And the idea was born from really the early days when Paul Matson got involved with DIY SOS across at the Veteran Street in Manchester. So he came back to Hull and thought, hang on, we can do something similar here. And before we knew it, there was a whole raft of people wanting to get involved and wanting to help veterans. And then over a period of time, we realised that we needed our own housing, and we started looking around for sites, and we came across a fantastic site just on the border of Hull and the East Riding, where we could build a Veterans Village.
Around about 2016, the first idea was formed, but it's grown arms, legs, tentacles and all sorts of things still since that day. But now we've come up with a real good plan, and obviously it's gone through planning permission, and we're there.
The village is mainly housing support and training. It's to help veterans and their families with that transitional journey, because many veterans do struggle. They've spent their life in the forces and they've become acclimatised to that way of life, and it's just really helping them with that transition, and all of a sudden it's a big change for them. So it's really to help them get that first step on the ladder and start to become part of the community.
There's 48 houses on the village itself, and a lot of them are for families as well. So probably within a year there's going to be hundreds of people that get some help from the village, and not just the people that are living on the village. The people in the area, the veterans in the area, can come for some help as well. So it will help many people over many years.
And we're just in the processes of putting together the funding packages so that we can start work, hopefully September of this year, September 2021, with a view that it's going to be a 2-year project, but we expect hopefully to have some elements of it open by summer of next year, so we can actually offer training on site.
It's funded in many ways. We're looking for grants, obviously, in all sorts of ways, but we're looking for local business to help as well, as much as humanly possible. So there's lots of different ways. There's people dropping us money in and things like that. We've got some big fundraising campaigns and some legacy campaigns that lots of businesses can be involved in.
The project is funded via various means, really. We're looking at match funding from various individuals. We're also looking at lottery funding at the moment, government support, obviously, but also support from the Armed Forces Covenant. So there's a whole raft of different areas that we're approaching funding from. We're very lucky in this area that the local authority do have a fantastic support for veterans, but I think that any help that charities can give as an addition would really help and benefit those veterans and their families. I think basically what I'd like to say is that if you as a company can help in any way, by all means do. We have a package that is effectively what we call a legacy package, so that any company can get involved, whether it's large or small, basically, and anything from contributing to putting a brick in a wall through to helping us build a support centre or a training centre. So anything that local companies and communities can do would massively help. So if you need to know anything about that, please get in touch.
This is the Business Day, coming to you live from the Bridlington Spa. I've now moved into the theatre because we are coming to our final speaker of the day, and I'm told that Mark is almost here. Mark and his family have been providing horses and riders for TV, film, photo shoots and live events for more than 25 years. Based in the heart of East Yorkshire, he takes on the role of horsemaster on many productions around the world, including Peaky Blinders, Victoria, The Witcher, The Larkins, and many more. Mark, welcome.
Hi.
What a way to meet, what an entrance.
Great to meet you.
Oh,
Yeah,
my goodness. Oh, that's extraordinary. What is the horse called?
That horse is called Malik.
Malik.
Yes, yeah. He's one of our favourite horses, and he does lots of extraordinary things.
Well, you do extraordinary things. It's completely amazing. I don't think the stage has seen anything quite like it.
Well, thank
Now,
you.
How did you come from being a dairy farmer to being a horsemaster, and what is a horsemaster?
Well, a horsemaster is the guy who is responsible for everybody's safety around the horse on set. That's our biggest role, really, our main responsibility. And then to make sure that the actors are safe, that the horses are safe, and that we deliver whatever the director is hoping to get, you know, from us. So that's the main thing. And the reason I got into it, well, my great-grandfather was hugely into horses, and then it skipped a generation, and my dad is a great fan of horses, and he taught me to ride when I was tiny. But we were dairy farmers. My dad was a dairy farmer, and so we had horses as a hobby. And it was decided, I remember one day my parents were having a dinner party, and they asked me if I would stay behind and just help serve the food before I went out with my mates. And I was in the kitchen, and my friends said to my parents, you know, what is Mark going to do when he leaves school? And I heard my mother saying, well, he'll farm. And that was a big moment in my life, because I wasn't sure that I really wanted to farm. And then life progressed, and I left school, went to agricultural college, and then Dad retired. I carried on farming and milking the cows. But meanwhile,
How many cows did you have?
We only had 45. We have only got 113 acres, and so we have a small farm. But the farm was doing really well. We weren't struggling at all. But it was we had a dairy herd, and we had beef cattle and pigs. We grew a little bit of wheat, a little bit of barley, and it was the old-fashioned mixed farm. But then meanwhile, I had met a lovely girl at the local amateur dramatic society, because there were 32 young girls there and only 4 men, and 2 of those men were in their 70s. So we decided, my friend and I, that we would go and have a look, and I met this great girl. And so we were married with 2 small children, and I went into the house for a coffee break, and Jill said that I should sit down because we were going to have a serious conversation, and she had decided that we were going to diversify from farming to horses, because horses have always been my passion and my love.
How interesting.
And so we did that, yeah.
The last time I was in this theatre was a couple of years ago at the Business Day with Lord Sugar, Alan Sugar.
Yeah.
And he said, when you go into a new business, do what you know, do what you love.
I absolutely
and clearly,
agree.
That's what you did.
Yes.
Your wife said to you, do what you know, do what you love. Did you abandon the dairy completely, the dairy farming?
Well, no.
You actually diversified. What happened?
We diversified, and at the time we were offered the golden handshake, which is a thing that the government were doing at the time, and if all the cows were shot basically and then incinerated, it was something that they were doing because the dairy industry wasn't going in the right direction. No. And so, but I didn't want to do that because my father had bred that herd of cows for over 40 years. So I sensibly or foolishly sold them off to neighbouring dairy farmers at not a lot of money, but at least I could sleep for the rest of my life.
And you kept the land?
And we kept the land, yeah.
And you decided to use the land for what, a riding school? What would you decide to do?
Yeah, well, we did. We opened a riding school and a livery yard, and we did riding for the disabled. And then some people came one afternoon, and they were reenactors. They brought the horses to us.
Reenactors are people who create Civil War battles.
Exactly. The craziest bunch of people you will ever meet
really?
in your life, yeah. So, as I found out to my cost. And then, so I went to Fort Paul, which is a museum near Hull, and they asked me if I would ride because somebody was off sick. And that was a very lucky day for my family, because there was a guy who needed to hire horses for the English Civil War Society and the Seal Knot, because their horse supplier had just retired, and we were given that contract.
So these reenactors, this is a big business that nobody's ever heard of. I mean, we occasionally see footage of people who are recreating the Civil War.
Yeah.
And these are ordinary people for whom this is a passion and a hobby, or is it a business? I mean, how does it work?
It is a hobby, but they are not ordinary people, I can assure you. So when we went to Yeovil, I'll try and make this really short, but we went to Yeovil in Somerset with 2 lorry loads of horses, and when we arrived the next day, they were a rider short, and they asked me if I would ride. And I had taken with me a little tin sword to train the horses with backstage. And I thought I would ride because I didn't really want somebody to ride my favourite horse. So I was on her, and we were lined up, ready to do our first charge. And the guys were saying how they felt they were reincarnated from the cavalrymen from this particular battle. And then we did our first charge, and my sword, I returned, and it was bent like this. And next to me was a guy called Keith, who was on a horse that he'd hired from a different supplier. And he was the standard bearer. His wife had given, it was their wedding anniversary, and his wife had had a beautiful sword made for him. It was embossed with all kinds of things. And he was persuaded to hand his sword over to me, and the battle commenced, and off we went. And I noticed that on the battlefield, that the drummers on both sides were frightening the horses more than the 12th cannon. There were 1,000 people in that battle.
Wow, what battle was it? Can you remember what you were
I can't remember, but I'm sorry. And so when I returned, most of his sword was still intact, but it was sort of broken. And the horse he was riding, it happened that she was in season. And the stallion that was carrying the officer on the opposite side noticed that the mare was in season. So when I looked across, poor old Keith had a hoof either side of his shoulders.
Oh, no.
And that's how Keith's day progressed. And then the stallion threw the rider, and I caught the stallion, and then the guy got back on the horse, and the day finished. And so it was all good. And then
you couldn't make it up.
No, you haven't finished.
A Civil War battle ends up with rumpy-pumpy between the horses.
Exactly. And then in the beer tent at night, I was sort of practically strung up by 14 drummers who I'd slayed on the battlefield, because you tap them on the shoulder, they have to die.
You mentioned, though, that the horses were a bit alarmed by the noise of the drumming, more than the cannon. How do you make sure that these, because in real battles, which for hundreds of years, men were on horseback fighting. And there were people still on horseback at the First World War, a lot, and even up to the Second World War, there were still people on horseback going into fight. And it was risky for the horses, and indeed fatal for many horses. And it was frightening. How do you ensure that you get the excitement and recreate a battle correctly without doing damage to the horses, either their physical or mental well-being?
Well, they do try to carefully choreograph it, and it's the same way that we would train a horse for a film. And so steady and steady. We did a display at the NEC for the Horse of the Year show, and that was a First World War battle scene. And so when we played battle scenes on the back of the stables, and we played a soundtrack with all the noise and the mayhem of battle, and we only played that at feed times. So when the horses got used to the noise, it created a happy sort of hormone in them, because they were getting their tea. And so when they were at the NEC waiting to go on, and they had their music and the special effects happening, they went into a display, but they were very relaxed, and we do that type of thing.
How many horses do you now have?
We've only got 41 at the moment, but we usually run about 60. And because of...
How long does a horse live?
30s, into his 30s.
And can they? How long is their working life with you?
Into their early 20s. Into their early 20s. So, for example, the lead horse on called Seamus on Poldark, he started in his early teens and then finished. He's retired now. You know, I was working with a horse yesterday who's 14. He's in his prime. So, but sometimes the young horses, they start really easily and do really well as well.
You're obviously, I mean, watching you just now, incredible. You are clearly as well as a horse master, you're clearly a horse rider of some distinction. Do you ever end up appearing yourself? Do they get you to be a sort of kind of stunt double?
Yet, I'm not a stunt double, I was a riding double. Now I only horse master, so you wouldn't ask the horse master to get into costume, but in my younger days I have. And on Peaky Blinders, for example, I doubled for Killian, and I also doubled for when Tommy and Grace were getting married. There is a carriage with the bride in a purple wedding dress and a purple veil, and that's me. You know? Yeah. And I doubled for Tom Hardy as well, and who's a lovely guy. For just a really quick story about Tom. When we're doing the riding doubling, usually the actors, particularly the lead men, they start off the production and they're quite nervous about riding, and then they become more confident, so they want to do more of the riding themselves. But Tom and I were having a cup of tea, and he said he was starting to enjoy the riding a lot more. And I said, well, don't enjoy it too much or I'll be out of a job. And he never rode another scene. Whenever the director said, who's doing the scene, Tom, you or Mark, Tom would just give me a little nudge and say, oh, Mark can do it, just so he was putting work my way. So
what a decent
lovely guy. Yeah, really nice guy.
And now some of them, I mean, I'm a physical coward. I would find it quite, I mean, I have been on a horse, but I haven't been very fast on a horse.
Yeah.
Do some of them find it very difficult?
Some find it really, really difficult. But in a way, they're probably easier for us to work with. It's the ones who are very, very confident that are the nightmare to work with. So, you know, and if, I think it happened one day that the leading man, one of his best friends had to ride that day, and the best friend was frightened of horses. So I had a word with the lead and said, please, can we do this very steady on action? Can we just go walk, trot? And he said yes, and then on action he galloped, and his poor friend had to gallop with him just for a few strides. So that's the sort of thing you don't want. It was fine because they were on very, very good horses who will stop on a whistle, and it was all good.
So you are masterminding it, but the horse master, we see them trotting along. What are the different speeds?
Walk, trot, canter, gallop.
Walk, trot, canter, gallop. The only thing I know is that canter, the word canter, comes from the Canterbury pilgrims who went by horse from London to Canterbury.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the origin of that word. Anyway, incidental information. Too much information, probably, because we're running out of time. So how does the horse know which speed to go at? Are you telling them? I mean...
That's a really good question. So we rehearse the horse before each scene. So I'll discuss with the director what the requirements are, and then the people that help me on set, they will rehearse the horse. So if we walk the horse to B, and he will stand there for 30 seconds, and then he walks on. When you put the actor on, that horse will know that he walks to B, stops for 30 seconds and walks on. It only goes, it can get confusing if the actor gets on and decides to trot around the field just before action, because now you've rehearsed that horse in trot, do you see? So the very good principal horses, however we rehearse them, nearly always we can guarantee that's what they will do.
And how do you signal to the horse?
Whistle is stop, but we have a groom at release and a groom at the end of the scene. So the grooms will set the horse off, and the other groom will collect the horse at the end of it. So it's the ground crew that tend to signal to the horse. Because of sound, it's very difficult to interfere with the scene.
And establishing this business, were there challenges? I mean, now, of course, you're famous. You know, here you are. We know you as the horse master. But at the beginning, when your wife had just had the idea, I mean, how did you, what were the challenges?
Well, you sort of learn as you go along, don't you? I remember going to the Leeds Armouries and watching their jousting. And for 2 years I went and said, because they hired horses from London for their very big international jousts. And I would say to them, well, I live 50 minutes down the road. Would you like to use my horses? And they'd say, thank you, but no. So the 3rd year I went and I said, if I bring my horses, would you give me some advice? You know, I'll just bring them one day. So we took the horses and then they met the horses and hired them. And we've had that contract for 18 years. So it's little, you know, as with any business, you have to try and watch, listen, and think of a way in, and once you're in, then it'll grow.
And do you do small things? I mean, if somebody's having a wedding and they want a sort of white horse to go ahead, I mean, do you help with that sort of thing?
Yeah, I was just listening to your piece earlier, and you said that you're responsible for different wedding venues. Well, tomorrow we're doing a photo shoot at a wedding venue, a new wedding venue in Northallerton. So in a way, you've given me a job. Thank you.
Very good. But I mean, do ordinary people try to hire you as well for spectacle, for different events?
Yes, they do. But we're happy to do that, but it depends what it is sometimes. Carriages, we're asked to supply carriages for weddings and for film as well.
And for period films. I mean, Jane Austen, there's endless Jane Austen films.
Yeah, God bless Jane Austen.
And you provide the horses that pull the carriage?
We supply, we did the Victoria carriages, and we've done lots of carriages, yeah.
Oh, good. My daughter-in-law was in the TV series Victoria. She was in that, and she was in a carriage pulled by horses. So probably.
I've met her then.
Well, she didn't actually. I mean, she was just in the carriage.
Yeah.
But how interesting.
Yeah.
So this is a big business.
It is a big business. I mean, actually, our particular there are 32 horse suppliers for film and TV in the UK at the moment, but we're very lucky that we are very, very busy. It has been non-stop. You know, with COVID, my son is very well known, he's better known than I am, for doing live shows. And also he's been out to Mumbai.
When you say live show, what happens at a live show?
So live shows would be the Yorkshire show this year. Yeah. We've got the biggest outdoor arena in the UK. And Ben is the main arena display again this year. He did it 4 or 5 years ago. So we do that all over the country and occasionally abroad as well. So overnight, when lockdown happened, 32 events were cancelled. So thank goodness for filming, because we managed to, as you know, filming to a degree has managed to keep ticking over, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's a fantastic business. This is Business Day. We've been talking about business in a way and about life. And business people have been watching. Thank you for being there. What is the message that you have for business people about, I mean, it's such an extraordinary thing to have changed your whole way of life, your family's way of life. How old were you when that happened, and compare with how old you are now?
Well, I'm 61 now.
Good, great, well done. And I say, riding a horse clearly keeps you fit.
Thank you. It's about 31 years ago, yeah. The children were tiny. Because our daughter Lucy is also involved in the business, but she teaches. But I think my advice to anybody, and it's a huge piece of advice to give really, but do chase your dream, do try, and especially to young people, I would say this to young people, go after a future career that is something that you enjoy. And to any horse people out there who have listened and think that they would like to do what we do, advice to them is you need to enjoy meeting people every bit as much as you enjoy working with horses, because that's a huge part of it. And I love it. You know, I get to travel all over the place. Sometimes the travelling is a bind, I admit it. But we were on set of All Creatures Great and Small, which of course we are filming in the beautiful Dales. And we are doing many jobs at the moment, but working on All Creatures Great and Small is just a privilege. It's the wonderful crew, great directors, and yeah, we're having a great time.
Well, I've loved meeting you. Carry on riding high. And I've loved meeting your horse. So, Mark, thank you very much indeed. Your transport has arrived. In fact, your transport has been waiting for you here. Yeah. I'm sorry this isn't what they call smelly vision, because you would know that Mark is, because that must be a problem occasionally with the horses performing in the way they shouldn't on camera. Does that happen sometimes?
It isn't too bad. I mean, we had a horse working at Covent Garden at the Royal Opera House, and it was only a problem when on the dress rehearsal night instead of rehearsing with a man dressed as a stag, a single guy, they brought 50 on, and we just had one little whoopsie in rehearsal. But for every performance, it wasn't a problem.
And of course, people love that,
It's
odd,
not a
little,
problem,
that odd
really.
little whoopsie. And I'm going to laugh at the whoopsie that's happened on stage now. Whether the people who run the Bridlington Spa will be. But we're so full of cleanser here. We've been spraying all the chairs, all the seats have been sprayed in between everything. Mark, you are brilliant.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. It's been fantastic. And as I say, your transport is ready.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Good. That's it. That is it. Goodness. Are we behind schedule? Yes, we are 15 minutes behind schedule. I apologise. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for being part of the business day from Bridlington Spa 2021. Next year, we hope we will be back live in person. Well, we have been live, but we hope you will be here, because normally we have about 700 delegates, but there have been 700 and more of you tuning in at different points this morning. Thank you for being here. This is going to be available forever, immortalised, because 10 years from now we're going to be playing it to see whether some of the things that we were talking about have materialised, how the cultural compact has made a difference, whether the Hull Lagoon has popped up. All those things, we shall be reviewing this in years to come. But also, if you've enjoyed this morning, tell your colleagues and friends, and they can watch it too. It is available. I've got to thank so many people for making this happen. Steve Parnaby, our event director, he's brilliant. Karen Phillipson, our event coordinator, brilliant. Mark Lonsdale, General Manager at Bridlington Spa, and his team. Yay! There is an imaginary virtual standing ovation taking place. Eon Visual Media, particularly Steve Foster, Jack Milson and their team. Our sponsors. Actually, without our sponsors, Business Day wouldn't happen. So if you have sponsored us, thank you. And thank you, if I may say so, for sticking with us in tricky times. Today has worked because we had such brilliant contributors, but you weren't to know that it would. So thank you very much for still being here. All the speakers who've come to Bridlington Spa today, it's a beautiful day. Bridlington is brilliant. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Next year, we will be back in person. The date is the 10th of June, 2022, Friday, the 10th of June. The Duke of Edinburgh's 101st birthday would have been the 10th of June, 2022. The last live event that I did was the British Funeral Directors Awards, which was memorable. It was now 18 months ago. Memorable because, well, it is always a memorable event, the Funeral Directors Awards, and there are two big prizes at that. One is for the crematorium of the year, known as the creme de la creme. The other is for the Lifetime Achievement Award for thinking outside the box. Well, we've been thinking outside the box today, and at the end with Mark, we were thinking outside the horse box. It's been a memorable day. Thank you for joining the business day from the Bridlington Spa. For this year, goodbye. See you live here in person next year, the 10th of June, 2022. Meanwhile, bye-bye. And Mark, oh look, hi-oh, Mark. Goodbye. Hey.